have a standing date to go golfing.
Actually, I was with Zerner, who's on my team, and his league is tonight out there.
Oh,
So we just took a break and
now we're,
Southampton.
oh, yeah?
Yeah. We had an hour break, had dinner, and went back out.
Oh, my goodness. Is that like,
Yeah.
looks good.
So the, Argus.
You read your email today?
What?
Have you read your email today?
I was golfing today, Guns and
Oh,
Roses.
that's so great.
So this thing was turned off until about a half hour ago.
Oh, don't read it until you're ready to be mad. Our friends.
Yeah.
Sorry, I really have.
We can, in the middle of negotiations. Talking to him. No, I mean, no one should be publicly talking.
This was a quiet little finance meeting. Some people in the hall. There. Here. Shit talk. I only meet them one a day. Mass General, we'll check 44. I'll make it up as I go. It's not 44, it's out there. Every 44 is all about finance, so yeah. Was there another meeting? Really? Yes. Okay. Yes, they are. They summoned me, so I'm just trying to figure out where to go. Oh, no. That is the back room. The back room? I don't know. Yeah, because the side door over there. Yeah, okay. Alright. But you can just come through. Yeah, I'm going to. He finished giving me shit. So you want? You want? Yes. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. I'm going to the finance meeting.
else? Okay, hi, good evening, everybody. This is the September 14th, 2015 meeting of the Development and Governmental Relations Committee. With us tonight are the Honorable Joseph McGivern, Gordon Alexander, Josie Valentin, and Gladys LeBron Martinez, and we thank you so much for coming tonight, everybody. And we'll just kind of dive through this as fast as possible, and if I could just get a motion on item 2, that would be great.
Motion to take up item number 2. Sorry. Motion to take up 2.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, item 2, order that the Honorable Mike Albano of the Governor's Council be invited to the Development and Governmental Relations Committee. And look at this, right in front of us is Michael Albano, former mayor of Springfield, former city council president, former probation officer, and current governor's counselor. So Mayor Mike, thanks so much for being here. And so when we kind of developed this committee, from the redevelopment committee to the development and governmental relations, you're the governmental relations part. You and the other folks we've had come in. This is really exciting to me to hear from other elected officials about their role in general and how specifically it may or may not impact Holyoke. So Mayor, if you want to make a few comments to the extent that you will, the floor is yours, sir.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Turn the mic on, Mike.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, thank you very much for the invitation to be with you. It's always great to be in Holyoke. And just for the record, my name is Michael Albano. I'm a member of the Governor's Council representing 96 communities in all of Western Massachusetts, essentially. And it's special for me to be here because Chairman Bartley's father actually was the one who introduced me and lured me into public service back a few decades ago. So it's a nice time to be with the chairman. And also, in my prior life, I served on the school committee, member of the Springfield City Council, obviously mayor, and now governor's council. And I have to say that my time as a city councilor was probably the most special of the public service time that I've had. I enjoyed being president of the city council because in those days, at the time, we had 9 at-large members. And as the president, I always had 5.5 votes of the council. Sometimes you needed 6, and my 6th vote was generally Billy Boyle, who was now a district court judge. And Judge Boyle would vote with me sometimes, but not all the time. About 90% of the time he'd be with me. So I always had like 5.5 votes out of the 6, which is always comforting when you have that gavel and you're trying to get something through. But we took care of Boyle. We got rid of him and made him a judge right in midterm. And also, as a member of the Springfield City Council, I enjoyed the back and forth with the mayor at the time relative to budgeting, but most importantly, land use. And as I become older, more experienced, you look back in some of the decisions that you make relative to land use, and you can see that if you don't do it right, it has a major impact. If you look at where the Basketball Hall of Fame is now, you may not remember what that used to look like 15 years ago. It was a mishmash of poor land use with a junkyard, tow yard, mishmash of commercial, some restaurants. It was just poorly developed, and it was a major entry, obviously, into the city of Springfield, into Western Massachusetts. When we built the Hall of Fame, it took $10 million of taxpayer money to take all that land, to clear it all out, and make room for now is a pretty decent commercial development. And if you look at the other side of the highway, where MGM is now taking all the property, and you look at that particular land use between a school, a car wash, a law office, some historical property, repair shops. Again, it was a mishmash of poor land use decisions, and now the city of Springfield has a chance to have a second opportunity at development on that side of the highway. So the point of this whole thing is that no matter what you do relative to land use, it's extraordinarily important, in my view. And looking back 20 or 30 years, you'll see that some of the decisions that this council will make, I'm sure you're all making good decisions, will impact the future development of the city of Holyoke. So I just mentioned that as a prelude because it was an enjoyable time. As a member of the Governor's Council, it is a constitutional office. We have numerous responsibilities, but most of them revolve around approval of notary publics, justice of the peace. The Governor's Council, you may not know, signs off on all state expenditures. We do about $1.5 billion a week of approvals for state expenditures, from local aid that City of Holyoke receives to Division of Family and Children's Services. Every single dime that is spent in the Commonwealth eventually makes its way to the Governor's Council for approval. Our primary responsibility is the confirmation of judges as put forward by the Governor. The Governor nominates, the Governor's Council has to approve. So we do all the district courts, from the land court to the district court to the probate court, juvenile, superior, appeals, housing, and the Supreme Judicial Court. And I had the opportunity of voting on 2 confirmations to the Supreme Judicial Court, Ralph Gantz, who's now the Chief Justice, and Geraldine Hines, who was an Associate Justice. So, again, that has great impact, and as Councilor McGivern knows very well, that if you don't put the right person on the bench, it can also have a major impact in the wrong way for a community. And Holyoke is a jurisdiction to its own, one of the few court jurisdictions in the Commonwealth that has just one city to serve. And if you don't make the right decision relative to the appointments of judges, it can have a very negative impact. And if you make the right decision, it can have a very positive impact. The Governor's Council also makes confirmation of Industrial Action Board and the Parole Board. Last session, we held 88 confirmation hearings in that 2-year period. So basically 1 a week. And some of them, like the, Chief Justice Gantz, went for 3 days. So it's very involved, very detailed. We do a great deal of background work to make sure that we're getting the right nomination. And I have to say Governor Patrick did a pretty good job. He filled virtually every position that was available before he left office. Governor Baker's off to a slower start because, quite frankly, there aren't that many positions right now, and we're just picking up now, almost a year into his first year in office relative to judicial nominations. So, Mr. Chairman and members of the council, that's the long and the short of it about what we do and how we make a difference in the quality of life relative to appointments, relative to approving expenditures, and the general role of the Governor's Council. Again, it is a constitutional office. Some people don't think it has that much authority. It used to have a lot more years back. But given the dynamics and what the role and responsibilities are, you can see that we're busy and that the work that we do does make a difference in the quality of life for the citizens, the people of the Commonwealth. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be quiet. That was probably longer than my state of the city when I was mayor of Springfield. But I'm ready to answer your questions relative to the council.
Well, thanks so much, Mayor. I just used to calling you Mayor, so. And there are 8 governors, 8 total?
8 governors, councilors, and the lieutenant governor
Is the chair?
is the chair. The lieutenant governor, under the Constitution, can vote if there's a tie. If there's no lieutenant governor, the governor then would preside, but unbelievably, under the Constitution, the governor in that situation does not have a vote. So when Lieutenant Governor Murray left in mid-term of Patrick's administration, there were 8 councilors, but the governor had to chair the council but did not have a vote. So, as you councilors know, 1 vote can make a big difference. So instead of just needing 4 votes for confirmation, the governor, Patrick, needed 5 because he did not have a say in his own nomination. Interesting.
Okay. It is interesting. And now, when you say Holyoke is a single district, how many are there other single districts like that?
There's just one other one, and I can't, it might be Quincy, but I'm not exactly sure. Perhaps Councilor McGivern would know, but Holyoke is unto its own. That's its own jurisdiction. And the judicial nominations that come obviously impact the entire city, so it's important to get it right. We had an associate justice named during my term, Matt Shea, who was assigned to the Holyoke District Court. He's a former prosecutor, And I think he gives some good balance to the judges that come and sit in Holyoke. But, you know, he is assigned all over Western Massachusetts, so he's principally in Western Massachusetts, but it's that type of person that you want, the type of quality person that you want to impact the quality of justice and also the quality of life in Holyoke.
And your election cycle is for 2 years?
We try not to tell anybody, but it is a 2-year
Okay.
term, yeah. We like people not to.
Well, interestingly, that's going to be one of our ballot questions, and so we'll as to how long the mayor's term and how long the mayor's term will be and how long city councilors' terms will be. So that'll be up for, and I remind people that our preliminary election is the 22nd of September, and the general election is the 3rd of November. I just like to keep that in mind. So I guess I'll kind of defer to anybody else. Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Michael, welcome to the chambers and to Holyoke. It's always a pleasure. I've known Mike Albano for some time now, and his career in Springfield certainly parallels a lot that has happened here in Holyoke. And if anyone understands what we face, I think it's an experienced governor's counselor like Mike Albano. Mike, I just want to follow up. Mike knows I'm a probation officer, we didn't serve during the same time, but we've talked about this a lot, and I've met him in the court system more than once more recently. The point about the district court and Holyoke being on its own, even going further back, and one of our former city councilors passed away this week, Pat Higgins. Pat Higgins was a police officer that went back to a time when the district court was actually run by the municipal level, on the municipal level, and the prosecutors were police officers. There was no DAs, you know, for the day-to-day stuff of a district court. The district court handled everything that went on in the community. And I think that's still, and Mike pointed out some judges that are sitting on the bench now that understand that. Judge Walsh, who was our presiding justice, joined by Matt Shea, Judge Boyle, who understands and serves in Springfield now, sits in Springfield, but understands because he served both in the community, that, you know, that he gets the message that district courts are very important to what happens in our day-to-day life. You know, what we see is the offspring of crime itself. And because 91 is the drug corridor from here up into Vermont, we see a lot that comes off of the highway. We see a lot of stuff that is negative to our city, to Springfield, to the region, and we need strong judges in that position to be able to deal with it on an appropriate level. But the governor's council, the governor's council is a mystery to, I'm sure, everybody in the room, except maybe what Mike just told us, because everyone says, what is the governor's council? It's far more important than it's given credit for, and I think this individual here shows that by his involvement, you know, 4 years now?
3 years.
3 years.
3 years, yeah.
They're going on the end of going into his 4th year. And it's an incredible tribute to someone that gets what Western Mass is about. And it's a pleasure to have you here this evening.
Councilor, very nice. Those very nice comments. I appreciate it, and I applaud you for the work that you do in the court system. But to your point, if somebody comes into the district court in Holyoke, you know, on a larceny charge or larceny under some type of shoplifting, a youthful offender, the type of justice that's administered, and you know, that if that person is found guilty, for example, they have a record. If the case is continued without a finding and then dismissed at some point, they don't have a record. And that makes a big difference. One of the things I neglected to talk about is that we also do pardons and commutations on sentences. And unfortunately, it has not been politically correct to do pardons. But there's a perfect example, and I always use this example. When I was a probation officer in Westfield, we had a young college student from Westfield State who had too much to drink on a Friday night. He ended up taking a street sign, had his name on it, like Albano Drive or Albano Way. Well, in those days, probably before your time, we had Saturday courts. So a judge came in from the Berkshires on a Saturday morning, and the young man came in, pled guilty, was fined $250. Well, it doesn't say college prank on the court record. It says larceny over. So that young man now had a felony conviction. Well, fast forward, 8 years later, he wanted to be a CPA. Guess what? He couldn't. So Governor Dukakis at the time granted him a pardon, and he went on to be a very successful accountant. Now, you know, it's just one of those things that happens, but pardons are so rarely granted now because it's not politically correct that it can impact someone's future. So I'm trying to make the case to Governor Baker, we should do an economic development pardon so somebody who's in that type of situation can receive some relief and go on to some type of economic mobility and have a good job and a good career and kind of erase that mistake that they made when they were 19 years old. I think it makes sense. I'm trying to encourage Governor Baker to do it because I do think it would make a difference in the long term for everybody in the Commonwealth.
Thanks, Mayor. Councilor Alexander?
Mike, thanks for coming down. It's very interesting to, it's sort of like Santa Claus. It is real. It is real. But
Thank you, Congressman. Thank you.
just a couple of questions on the financial side of things that you mentioned. So you approve every expenditure
We do.
at the budget level or at the appropriation level?
At the appropriation level.
Okay. And
So
go ahead.
we receive warrants from the treasurer, so all the expenditures then first go to the treasurer, and the treasurer signs off on it. Then it comes to the governor's council for approval, and then once it's approved, then the treasurer issues the checks.
Okay, and what's sort of the purpose of that step? Why? What are you looking for?
Well, it's a constitutional, it's part of the Constitution, but, you know, we raise
For a
some...
reason, presumably, so
Sure,
that's what I'm
but it's
asking.
another check and balance. But we raised some questions to Patrick on the connector, the health connector, you know, when it was $323 million over budget. Years ago, a governor's counselor from Worcester by the name of Peter Ely held up, Governor Dukakis wanted to build a prison in New Braintree. I don't bring that up for any particular reason, but he wanted to build a prison in New Braintree, and Governor's Counselor Ely held it up, $5 million, because the people of New Braintree were opposed to it. And then Bill Weld came in, succeeded Dukakis, and all of a sudden it wasn't a prison. It was a police training academy. So there are things that the council can do. Normally, we're not going to second guess the legislature and the governor and the treasurer relative to appropriations, but we do have that authority to question it every once in a while and create that check and balance.
Nice. And does the council, not to you individually, but does the council function in an advisory role? Like, the feedback we're getting is that's a bad idea, this would be a better idea?
Well,
or,
I can
or is
tell
it
you that
strictly a
there's-
yes, no, up, down kind of thing?
There's a lot of give and take. There's a lot of give and take with the governor and the lieutenant governor behind the scenes. So, you know, oftentimes they'll say, well, the governor's council is a rubber stamp relative to judicial nominations. I can tell you that there's a lot that goes on before that nomination comes forward. For example, if I had a major problem with somebody in Western Massachusetts who was going to be in the Holyoke District Court, I would make that known, and that person most likely would not advance, or if they did advance, they'd know there's going to be a floor fight. You know, I'm trying to diversify the bench as best I can. I've said this before, I think we got too many white guys on the bench, that we need more women and people of color, because the bench should look like the people that we represent.
Sure.
So, you know, we'll see what happens, and we'll see how Baker turns out. Patrick was a little more progressive in that type of view, but we'll see how it goes. But I think it's important that you have the right person on the bench, not just the person from Harvard, but the person who knows the community. Mm-hmm. I think to Councilor McGivern's point, that's why Judge Boyle is such a good judge. You know, he was a city councilor, he grew up in Springfield, he knows Springfield, and he sits on the bench in Springfield. He knows the community. I think that's important.
That's great. Well, thank you, and thanks for looking out for Western Mass on the council.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Councilor. Thank you for those comments.
And before I turn it over to Councilor LeBron Martinez, we are joined by Councilor Leahy and City Council President Jordan. Councilor LeBron Martinez.
Mr. President, good to see you.
Again, Mike, welcome to Holyoke again. You just touched on something that I thought it was very interesting in regards to pardon possibilities. I know that Connecticut at one point, my friend was running an organization that was allowing, and I know how people were able to progress economically, and you also touched on the factors of people of color being representative, and that is an issue. I work at Career Point as a career counselor, as you know, and the that's what we face. Finding people who probably have very, small records on their, criminal records on their records that are limiting them to economically moving the ladder. And I think that needs to be reconsidered eventually. So I thank you for that.
Well, on your point, Counselor, I just spoke to the NAACP in Springfield with District Attorney Gallooni the other night on this very issue. But just think about it. There's 2,000 jobs in Springfield with this casino coming, and perhaps even more. You have to have a clean record to go into that casino. So that's why I'm making this pitch to Governor Baker. There's 2,000 job opportunities. Why would you eliminate somebody because they had a shoplifting charge back in 1988? I don't think you should, but they can. So that's why I think this pardon provision and authority of the governor is very important to give people this potential opportunity. What would be better than to put them to work as opposed to relying on the government for additional services? Thank you.
Any other counselors? Counselor Leahy.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Barley, and I too applaud the fact that you're here. In fact, Mayor Albano's often in Holyoke. Oftentimes, I feel like you're representing us as well when you're the mayor of Springfield, because I would see you at so many different functions. And so I just want to congratulate you on the work that you've done for Western Massachusetts. And I know that the Governor's Council, as Councilor McGivern said, it's kind of I don't want to say a secretive thing, because it's not a secretive thing. You could just go online and look it up. And but people don't realize how the importance. I mean, these guys appoint the appellate board. These guys appoint the parole board. These guys appoint, as you said, very powerful judges. I had the chance to have dinner the other night with the Supreme Court Justice. I saw these two counselors there as well, Sotomayor. I mean, it's such an important position, and you guys do such a wonderful job on it. So having said all that, I just wanted to say thank you for coming in and explaining to the city of Holyoke exactly what you guys do. Thank you.
Thank you, counselors. Thank you for those comments.
Counselor Jordan.
Yeah, I just wanted to also thank Governor's Counselor Albano for coming here this evening. Again, my hat off to you. I think you've just been doing a great job. Number one. Number two is I've seen you as active as a governor's counselor as I've ever seen anybody in this position, at least certainly in recent memory. And I do go back a little ways now here in local politics and in fighting for Western Mass, fighting to make sure that we have people from Western Mass sitting on the bench, I think is very important too. Also in a lot of these, different positions like clerk magistrates and these things, this is very important that we have organically grow our judiciary here and the people that work in the courts. And I know myself as an attorney, I feel that's very important because these are the folks that know the day-to-day operations mechanically. I also wanted to say, I don't know if this was touched on earlier, but I think you've taken a very courageous position regarding the whole location of the alcohol drug treatment program in Springfield. And, there's other alternatives to that location. And I think you're fighting for the neighborhood there and those folks that are down there. And I think that that takes a lot of chutzpah and courage to do that. And I'm very impressed. And, we have certainly what I find ironic about that whole situation is there's no drumbeat to have it out of Holyoke. Yet there's, it doesn't seem like Holyoke is even being given serious consideration to have this program here in our community. Yet it was, if you look at the RFP, was one of the listed communities to host this program. But yet it seems like we're going to fit it in where it's not wanted, but yet there's other alternatives where it is. So continue that good work, and certainly if we can ever do anything here to be helpful to you in your duties, we'd be happy to do that.
Well, Mr. President, thank you very much. And you did note you're a lawyer. And after those very nice comments, you'd make a great judge.
Might take you up on that someday.
So just to follow up, and we'll conclude it here on Councilor Leahy's point and Kevin's point. This is televised, and the good news is, Mayor, as of last week, there are new fiber optics put into the system. So allegedly, and I haven't had this confirmed, that folks don't have to turn their volume up at home to 120 to be able to hear what's being said here, and apparently their screens are not getting all cloudy and all the rest of that. So for your presentation, it's probably an eye-opener for, I would say, a good percentage of the people, as Joe mentioned, good percentage of people watching. So with that, I think we are at an end. Mayor, Governor Councilor Albano, Mike Albano, thank you so much for being here.
Mr.
Really
Chairman,
appreciate it.
councilors, thank you very much. It's a great honor to be here. Thank
Okay,
you.
Thanks.
Motion to take up item number 3 on the agenda? Or did you want to go somewhere else?
Okay, can I just get a hold? If anyone's here for the finance sub, I don't think anybody is, but finance subcommittee is meeting in what's known as room 11, which is behind us. I'm strike that. We're in room 11, room 10 behind us, and this is development and governmental relations. So just want to say that out loud. And if I could just get a motion on number 2 first.
Motion that item number 2 has been complied with?
Okay, hearing no objections, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. If I
Motion to
get a-
take up item number 3?
Okay, no objections, all in favor. Item number 3, special, this is a continuation of a public hearing. This is for an outdoor sales lot for new and used motor vehicles and trucks and marine and rec vehicles establishment at 9 Avon Place by Mr. Angel Albeo. Mr. Albeo, are you here, sir? Okay, all right. Well, why don't you come in and grab a seat at the microphone, just instead of standing out there.
Can I ask you something?
Do you want to ask me on the microphone, or?
Sure.
Counselor Valentin?
Thank you.
Recognized.
Just before we start, when we first started speaking with Mr. Albelo, Councilor Lebron Martinez and I briefly checked in with him after we had finished our meeting, just to kind of let him know what the next steps would be. And I don't know if it would be appropriate, but I would like to offer, if necessary, if there's anything that we are discussing with Mr. Albelo that he would prefer to hear in Spanish, I would be happy to translate that for him. So I just wanted to know, I don't know if that's appropriate or not, so I'm just kind of putting it out there.
Well, in the ruling of the chair, it would be appropriate. So, so Mr. Bell, if there's something that you need clarification on, just say it.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
you know what? I want you to pull that mic, you pull yourself or the mic closer to you so you speak into it. Just give it a test.
Is the light on?
The light's on.
The green one? Yeah, just press that
Press
button at the bottom.
base.
At the bottom.
Now it's not on. Is it on, Joe?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay.
So just in case there's any need for that, I'm happy
Yeah,
to do
so
that.
that'd just be ruling chair, and so that's perfectly fine. So, counselors, okay, so, I think when we last met, which was July 28th, this is a continuation from July 28th, we had a few questions. One was if you had a dimensional plan. There might have been a couple other things about about parking too. So, is there something? Did you recall the questions we had, or do you want me to repeat them? Or
No, I'm okay.
so tell us how'd you do between then and now?
I submit the plan.
Yes. So I think we asked for a dimensional plan. Was that one of the questions, Joe?
We need a plot plan to scale that would show the parking, the uses, and with both businesses being on it, where everybody was going to park, including customer and employees.
Yes, and I submit the plan.
You submitted the plan
To the city, yes.
to the city. Okay.
Do we have it?
Do we have it? Well, let's find out if we have it.
And I have a copy. Yeah, I have a copy.
Oh, okay,
If
we
you
have a
need it.
copy, that's just as good. Yeah, I'm good with that. I have, I don't. Oh. Thank you. Okay,
Oh, you're welcome.
okay, so. This is well done.
So that shows the parking spaces, which we had asked about too.
Got all the parking spaces laid out. Do we have a letter from the, Do we have any communication from planning showing that it meets the parking requirements based on this plan?
I don't have anything updated, and this is, Mr. Merrill,
Where is Marcos?
come join us,
He's
sir.
hiding in the back. He was here earlier. Normally, we get a letter from Jeff saying, I've analyzed the plan, it meets the requirement of X number of parking spaces. blah,
We had the original letter, if I may, Council Alexander, dated July 23rd, and if you look at the letter, it says, planning would recommend that a scalable identifying features be submitted. All they had was so they recommended it.
Proof of the number of cars allowed is what comes off the plan.
And yes, that's right. So for cars, and there, in this case, if I recall, there's a few other businesses there. So based upon the other businesses being there and their parking requirements, Marcos, how does Mr. Albeo do it? Does he meet the city ordinances?
The site plan submitted, I should say the plan submitted is scalable, so we thank him for that. Unfortunately, I don't have a copy with me, and I don't believe that the numbers for the other business were submitted, so we can't come to a definitive conclusion based on the two uses. In terms of the uses that he's provided, I believe it meets everything. Frankly, I haven't been able to be updated by staff on this on the day today. We're dealing with several site plan reviews for tomorrow. But it is a scalable plan. It's probably one of the best that's been submitted at this point.
Yeah, and I don't know if we would have some discretion to maybe kind of, sort of based upon additional information for tomorrow night's hearing to make sure that the other, we could sort of provisionally approve it here or recommend it be approved or not. But I'd like to move this out of committee. That's my hope. But Councilor Alexander, want to be recognized.
Sure. A couple of things, and I'll speak to this wearing my ordinance hat where these things had been for quite a while. One is, yes, absolutely, we can move it out of committee with a recommendation that assuming the parking meets whatever criteria, our recommendation to the full council would be an affirmative recommendation. We can couch it that way. Secondly, when a plan like this comes in, normally it refers back to the planning department. I understand if it just came in and you haven't gotten to it, no big deal, but that's the normal process. Because frankly, this applicant shouldn't have any knowledge of the other uses and what they were permitted for parking. Only the planning department and the keeper of the permit itself, maybe the clerk's office, would have that information?
The property owner, so a special permit goes with the property. So really, the property owner should be the one, and normally is the one applying. Whether they make the tenant apply for a permit, that's up to their discretion, but they would have to sign off on the fact that they're allowing such use to be on the property. The same would be the case for a scaled plan. The ordinance doesn't require the tenant to provide a scaled plan. The scale plan is of the property, and so the property owner ultimately bears responsibility for the conditions that meet the ordinance so that they can rent out their property there.
It is, and that's correct, but we're the ones, we, the city, broadly, are the ones who permitted the other uses and permitted the parking requirement for those uses. So logically, it's planning, really, that should be able to say,
Well, there are two assumptions there
of the 50 parking spaces, let me just finish the thought, and then you can disagree with it if you want. Of the 50 parking spaces that are shown on the plan, we know that 25 of them are used up by this other permit that was already issued. So there are 25 available. That meets this gentleman's requirements or not, or whatever. I mean, that's how I've always understood that process, and if we're deviating from that, tell me why.
There are two assumptions that may not necessarily meet that argument. In this case, we don't have something on file that has a permit for the other use. Some uses are simply grandfathered to the ordinance. The other is, even when it is permitted, as is the case with other properties, they may be overusing the site. And so that may be something that the council may want to look into. I'm not saying that's the case here, but if we had another permit on site, we would clearly state that in the document, that in the permit, the other use has whatever, 10 cars, 5 cars, 20 cars, whatever the case may be. That's not the case here.
So in this case, there is no other permit. There just wasn't one issued. It's too old or whatever.
Nothing that we have on file.
Okay. Okay, and then finally, regardless of other permits on the site, I don't believe in the initial letter we have, there's anything stating the number of required spaces for this use, based on the building size, square footage, all that kind of thing? Did we get that?
17.
17, okay. So then it's up to, I guess it's up to us to look
Item
at
number
this and
5,
say, do we have
maximum number of
17?
motor
Yeah,
vehicles
Dave
is
found it.
indicated
My
there.
apologies. And that's for sale, employee, and customer? Does that cover all 3 uses?
That's for, oh, it's not clear on here. So usable, it says
Sales area.
sales is what this is for. For customers, for employees, it's 2 spaces for every 3 employees. And we're not sure how many employees are going to be because no information provided.
Number of employees you're planning on having on site? 2?
Okay, so that brings us to 20. And then, so you need 20 spaces, which if you look at
You
this,
need some customer parking based on the square footage.
customer parking as well. So customer parking, is that addressed in here? I would think it would be, but customer parking.
I believe it's identified on the
Um,
site plan.
Customer parking is not, there is a line that says customer parking. It just says adequate customer parking must be provided in off-street parking spaces in accordance with the zoning ordinances,
I think.
but it doesn't.
I may be making a point that's not terribly relevant. It looks like there's about 4 times as much
2.
parking as you really need.
There's two customer okay, so you need 2 spaces for employees and 2 for customers,
17
Councilor
for
Alexander.
vehicles. Perfect.
So a total of 21.
And so there's way more than that on here, and there's no prior permit allocating any of these to some other use.
That's the way that appears to me, yes.
I would say it's good to go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilor LeBron Martinez?
I was wondering if the company, the owner of the, Mr. Goddard's is the company, are they here? No. No tan?
No, he
They're not
was
here?
supposed to be here, but
Okay, just to get some clarification, because I think that this process is holding, and I'm hoping that we can go ahead with a professional support on this and see, there's a lot of parking out of, that's a dead-end street, I went and looked at it. It's a dead-end street, there's enough parking for even customers if they needed to do so. You know, because I know there's businesses in our community that are parking on the street, so just to support that.
Thank you. Councilor McGivern, did you want to?
I do, because I think we've made some progress, but, Marcus, we're dealing with a permit for a use, legitimate use by a person who's proposing to open up a new business with, we think, the permission of the owner of the property. The business that exists on the property is called Mr. Gutter, and when I visited the site, there were at least 7 vehicles for that business on premise at a given moment in time. And I don't know how many employees work in Mr. Gutter on site, or if customers come to that business, but we need those numbers to legitimately look at this property. And we're not the enforcement agency, you know, we're about use. So if we grant a permit tonight for the numbers that are shown here by scale, it may put Mr. Gutter out of business.
Well, more, I mean, if
There
you're,
won't be any parking for their vehicles.
well, more
And
likely
an
than not,
enforcement agent could go into that parking lot and look at it and say, okay, this is for the used car lot, everything else has to go.
that could be one way in that it ends up happening. What sometimes happens is that you have a lot of cars parked there, and it creates a blighted condition until someone does enforcement, and in that case, that could be the consequence, yes.
So has there been contact with the owners of Mr. Gutter, or I'm not sure if they're even the owners of the property?
We've requested this information before, but it's not been provided.
So we still are missing information.
We do not have that information, no.
Councilor Valentin?
Thank you. When we hear this information has been requested from the owner of the property, obviously Mr. Albelo is a tenant, and so it's frustrating to me, and nothing to do with your office, but just in general, that first, this information was requested already from these folks. Second, they were expected to be here tonight by Mr. Albelo and by us too, because we did talk about this last time, that they should be here as the property owners to answer questions. So now Mr. Gutter has had, we'll just call it that in general, has had two clear expectations to be present, to be available. In the meantime, Mr. Albelo has done what we have asked him to do. I do not feel it is a fair process to hold up his request when he is providing the information we need. And this is the second time he's in front of us. If I remember correctly, he's coming from Eastern Mass, correct?
Yes.
And it just seems to me that I would be in favor of approving this tonight based on the information that we have. We have answers to the questions that I think we were looking into last time. This was in July. We are now pretty much 2 months later, almost 2 months later. And I just do not feel that it would be a fair process to hold this up because we have, apparently, we have some irresponsible property owners that are not giving the information to the Office for Planning and Economic Development, are not showing up to this special permit process for a tenant of theirs. And it just doesn't seem that it's a fair process to me to hold up Mr. Albelo. That's just my opinion on that.
Councilor Alexander?
Thanks. I just wanted to observe that according to the really nice plan, I got a copy of it. It's a beautifully done plan. We never get those. There are 52 parking spaces on site. So there's more than double what this particular use requires. I don't think we're going to run into a practical problem, even if we run into the process isn't exactly as we'd like it laid out. And going forward, I believe the new applications do require the owner's contact information on them, so hopefully it'll be less challenging to get a hold of an owner when it's necessary.
Okay, so with that, I just want to, there's a couple other things, Mr. Abel, that I want to just kind of briefly go through on the application. And Marcos, if you want to jump in, you can feel free. Just on the signage, you're working now with the building commissioner?
Not yet, but I will.
Okay, so if you want to put a sign up, you've got to comply with the building commissioners.
Yes.
So, because you indicated on your response that you would. Okay, so Marcos, nothing to add there? Building commissioner?
No.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. Buffering. So one of the ordinance requires that auto sales activities be buffered from adjacent properties with landscaping and other materials. There is no proposed buffering and/or landscaping illustrated. Have you? Because we did talk about that on the 28th, if you recall.
And it's so artful. The parking lot is artful. There's no way to do landscaping. I live 5 feet from the fence to the start of the parking lot. That's what they require. Yes.
I understand that. So there's no, I mean, I don't have the site memorized, but it's you really can't do any plantings or attractive fencing in there?
It's artful. The whole parking lot is on artful. There's no grounds.
No grounds,
Yeah.
okay.
And there's a street here, a street here, a street here, and a street here. The whole property is
You're surrounded
Surrounded by streets.
You're surrounded by streets. Okay, that would, dead-end street, thank you, Gladys. Okay. Lighting. I think you said that there was an existing,
It's a light pole
okay.
with 2 lights.
all right. And so that won't be, what it says, the ordinance says, any lighting on the site shall be shielded from abutting properties, but again, there's not just any abutting properties.
parking lot here.
There's a parking lot. Okay, this is the urban core here we're talking about, so we're not talking about greenways. Okay, and I think the rest of it, sir, we pretty much discussed. So if there are no further, Ms. Councilman McGivern.
I don't believe we have a complete plan in front of us, but if it's the committee's intention to go forward, there's several other questions that need to be asked.
Did you want to ask questions now? I don't know what the intention is, I don't have any motions, so, did you want to ask questions, Joe?
Mr. Abella, and I believe you're a legitimate business person trying to do have a good proposal, and we, trust me, we want to work with you.
Thank you.
I think the shortcomings are not with the city council, but something is not clicking to be helping you get this business open and to do the right things in terms of the property owner. The dumpster situation, we talked about that the last time. Mr. Gutter has a dumpster on premise, it's overflowing. Is that the dumpster you're going to be using?
He got two dumpsters in the location.
Is the second one new?
No, it was there. It's a big one and
Is that shown on
smallest
the
one.
plan?
And it's
The
in
dumpster on the plan?
the plan. You can see the dumpster.
Mr. Gutter had 2 or 3 storage sheds, vehicles,
Yes.
half vehicles, I think, at one time, that looks like they were using for storage. Are they still going to be on site?
We was talking about those storage containers, and matter of fact, he got 5. And we was talking that he gonna take 3 out of there, and he gonna keep 2 of them.
Okay, so he needs 2 spots for storage containers, 2 dumpsters. How many vehicles does Mr. Gutter have?
I believe he got like 6 box trucks.
And you know how many employees?
I see like 5, 6 cars there. When after the work day start and they living in the trucks, it's only like 5, 6 cars parked there.
That would be the drivers of the trucks
Yes.
who are, their work is off-site.
Yes,
Their personal vehicles are parked on-site while they're working?
inside. Yes.
Okay, so that's several, at least, plus whoever works inside Mr. Gutter, that's 10 to 12 cars just for their employees.
I don't think it's that many cars, not 12.
Is there a salesperson on site, or is there?
Well, the office for Mr. Gore is on the 2nd floor, and they have a parking that is on High Street for the office.
Not on
and the
street, they don't.
customers.
That would be off-street.
Excuse me?
That would be off-street parking, on-street parking, I mean?
No, they have a parking
They have a
lot.
parking lot?
Yeah. That's next to Aaron Furniture Store.
To the right of Mr. Gutter's front, if you're looking at the front of the building, it's to the right.
Yes.
That's there on Joe.
And it's
Yep.
no customer go on the backyard because it's
Now, this parking lot on High Street is just for Mr. Gutter? Or is it for Aaron's Furniture Store also?
no. Aaron Furniture have a parking lot across High Street.
I'm aware of that. But do they use it at all?
Well, they have a sign that it said Aaron Furniture customer parking.
And their employees park across the street?
Yes,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay. Counselor, did you have a question? Counselor?
I'm ready to make a motion whenever we're ready.
Sure, yeah, I'll entertain any motion anytime.
I make a motion to accept the special permit application for Mr. Albelo.
Okay, so I have a motion to accept the permit and a second under discussion. Counselor McGivern.
With all due respect, it's a motion that I would want to vote yes for, but without the complete plans, which our planning director has told us this evening, I don't know if we can go forward, or if we're abiding by our own ordinance as to what we need in front of us to make a report back to the full city council. The issue isn't taking the vote right now. The issue is we have to make a decision first on whether we're going to close the public hearing. If we close the public hearing, the time clock immediately starts. And we may find out, because we don't have complete plans, we will not be able to vote for this permit in the affirmative tomorrow night. We don't have a letter from the owner. We don't have what Mr. Gutter's parking, situation is. It's because this is it's in the communication, the original communication from the planning department, because there's two businesses on an existing lot. We have to deal with both businesses, even though it's only one, the permit is for one, proposed business, we have to deal with both of them. Mr. Gutter's been contacted, the owner of the property's been contacted, and we've yet to receive that information.
Right, we do have a communication from the owner, so that's just that one simple, we support it. That was it. So that was in the original packet. So we do have that communication. Mr. Gutter's, I don't know who owns them, or if it's the property owner itself, or if this is another lessee. I don't know. But we would have to, well, since we still have a public hearing here, I'll recognize Councilor LeBron Martinez.
I believe, was it you, Joe, that mentioned possibly, like, we can work a provision with some clause in it to meet those criteria that are not being met and come back to it, so we really have a more...
Well, I think there's good compromises that can be made, but we need it in writing that, say, one compromise is the employees who drive the 6 or 7 trucks for Mr. Gutter. Their personal cars can be parked somewhere else. They don't have to be parked on site. And that would free up parking spaces for Mr. Arbello and his customers and we haven't even talked about the number of cars that we're gonna allow, or it's not in the motion anyways. So there's ways to do this, but it's very difficult to do it without the other parties present.
But again, can we do this with some stipulations and he has to come back and meet this? Or we cannot close the hearing? Is that what you were explaining earlier? That if
Well, let me just interrupt here. So we can do what we want to do. Okay, so there's that. But first of all, we've got a public hearing here, and so we'd have to hear from the. I'll have to hear from invite the public to make a comment pro or nay. That's one thing. Then once we go through that, then we can motion to either continue the public hearing or to close the public hearing. And both have a consequence. So if we do close the public hearing, then there's going to be a second motion or not on whether to accept the planning board's recommendations, accept the planning board's recommendations with conditions, or not. I mean, there's a series of things that the procedure calls for. So with that, I have Councilor Alexander next, and Joe, if you want to follow up. Councilor Alexander.
Thanks. Marcos, was Mr. Gutter reached out to? I don't know what his first name is, so I'm just going to call him Mr. Gutter.
I honestly don't know what the communication was between
we don't know
staff
what
and
happened there.
Mr. Gutter, but just to be clear, the planning board doesn't issue a recommendation on these special permits. All we do is collect the information that is provided. We review it with the ordinance, with the zoning ordinance, and whatever missing information, we request it back from the applicant.
Thank you. So at this point, we have a clarification, notification from planning that we need 23 spaces total? 17, 18, 19, 21 spaces total. We have a plan that shows that there are 50-something plans on the property, parking spaces on the property. We don't know Mr. Gutter's use, but Mr. Gutter's not in front of us for a permit. They pre-exist the permit process or somehow or another were grandfathered in. So frankly, they're the ones at risk. If we permit 21 spaces here and it turns out that Mr. Gutter, should he eventually come in for a permit, needs 40 spaces, we would have to say no because we permitted 21 spaces here. That's not stopping us from permitting this project. We have all the information we need to permit this project. I would prefer that all of the co-siters on a property file for permits simultaneously, but that's not realistic, and it's not the information we have in front of us. I don't think, if we close the public hearing, we can't receive any more information anyway. If we keep it open, we're just dragging this out. We have an applicant who's done everything right and wants to get his business off the ground. I think at this point, we grant this special permit, and if for some reason down the road, Mr. Gutter comes in for a permit, or Mr. Gutter sells, in which case the new applicant would need, the new owner would need to come in for a permit, well, this is then the pre-existing condition that they have to operate under, is that Mr., Albello? Albello, thank you, has been granted a certain use on the property, and that occupies a certain amount of space on the property, and what's left is available to Mr. Gutter. Knowing the Mr. Gutter business, they've got a couple office workers, they've got a bunch of guys who come in, jump in a truck, and leave. They do almost all their fabrication at the job site, so it's not like they've got a big metal shop going there. So, and they've got additional parking on High Street on a little separate lot that's not connected to this property at all. It's at a different grade. So I think this is completely approvable at this point. And I'm normally the first one to be like, no, the letter T wasn't crossed and the I wasn't dotted, and we need more information. I'm all over these things. I think in this case, we've got a good plan, we've got a good project, we have what we need to know, and barring any outcry from the public, which we'll find out in a moment, I think we're in a great position to go ahead and approve this. Thank you.
Just so I'm clear, special permits are granted for a period of how long?
For the duration of the ownership.
Duration, okay, so Council, I understand it said they're granted for the duration of, so long as he owns the business, the special permit is,
I think that's accurate, yes.
okay, all right, I just wasn't clear. Any other councilors? Okay, does the public, this is a chance for the public to address us. So if there's anyone from the public that would like to speak for or against this application, now's the time to raise your hand. I don't see anyone raising their hands for or against. I've already heard from the applicant. So I guess, well, the motion would.
Before we close the public
Councilman
hearing, can I
Gibbon.
ask a question
Yeah.
to the planning director? Marcus, Mr. Gutter, what type of business would they come under? What would they be categorized as?
I'm not familiar with Mr. Gutter.
Okay, but it's not something that would necessarily require a permit, special permit, if it's zoned
My
correctly.
apologies, I don't have information. on Mr. Gutter.
I'm pretty sure, whether they're a manufacturer, whether they're a vendor, they're not a used car lot, they're not a motor vehicle repair lot. I don't think there is any special permit for that type of business, as long as it's the correct zone, which I'm assuming it is. If it's not the correct zone, then I don't think this special permit would be in front of us, because then it would be non-conforming, as opposed to grandfathered.
If I'm being asked whether they would need a special permit, I really don't know.
Okay. We're looking to bring a new business into the city of Holyoke. Certainly, that would come under the Office of Planning and Economic Development.
What's the question?
The new business that we're trying to bring into Holyoke.
I mean, that goes without saying. We welcome all new business. We also have the responsibility to provide the information to the city council for proper enforcement of codes.
Okay. And at the beginning of this meeting, you told us the information is incomplete.
That's correct. We don't have all the information at hand.
Thank you.
And just so I can, other than what you pointed out, just specifically from Mr. Gutters, what information are we missing?
I mean,
Just so the applicant's aware.
so the ordinance calls for understanding what are the needs of parking on a site. Sometimes a site is shared amongst more than one use. So ultimately, the city council has full discretion on issuing its permits. But if you're following the ordinance, the ordinance calls for knowing what automobiles are going to be on site. Because otherwise, you could have.
Marco, I don't want to cut you off, but yeah, okay. So that I wasn't clear on my question. So other than the parking issue, what else are we? Because we've gone over that ad nauseum now. What else is your office? Because we just heard you say the application is not complete. Got it. I just want to reiterate. So we talked about the parking, asked and answered. What else is incomplete?
That's the only information that we're missing at this point.
Okay,
Everything
so-
else is just up to your discretion.
Okay. I just, because, when you say that, it's hanging out there. The application's not complete, so we know it's the parking, but then, we've talked about the parking. We understand there's, according to this plan that's been given Councilor Alexander's seal of approval, there are 51 spaces on here? Approximately 50 some odd spaces on there. And we understand from the applicant that he requires 21 with his vehicle sales 2 for customers, 2 for employees, because we expect to have 3 employees. That leaves approximately 30 spaces for the other business, which we now know as Mr. Gutters. So, with that in mind,
Can I ask a question?
you can ask a question, certainly.
Thank you. Mr. Albelo, is the owner of the property, which would be your landlord, right? Are they the owners of Mr. Gutter?
Yes,
So it's the same person?
same person.
So these are people that had the opportunity to be here tonight, that if they were in opposition to what you're presenting and they said, this isn't fair, we need parking too, they could be sitting right there next to you, but they chose not to do that, right?
The owner have a copy of the plan.
And you have been in constant conversation with the owner who owns the land, owns the property, owns the business of Mr. Gutter, and they have not expressed any concern to you about they're not going to have enough space for their needs?
No?
Okay, thank you.
Well, in fact, in a July 23rd letter, it says, I didn't realize that they were the owners, because it doesn't say any, it says 740 High Street LLC. That's the property owner, correct, but it doesn't say that they're the business owner of Mr. Gutters, who's now the most famous business in Holyoke. It just says, Maureen Rabine says, this is confirm our support for Mr. Albeo's application. So that's pretty clear. So, okay, so with all that, councilors, do we have a motion?
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Okay, motion is on the floor to close the public hearing. It's been seconded. I don't hear any further discussion on that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, the chair voted yes on that. So that's 4-1 to close public hearing.
Motion to recommend granting
let
of
me
the permit?
take the note there, Counselor. Just hold the phone. Okay, I appreciate that, though. Okay, with that, any other motions?
Motion to grant this, or recommend granting of this permit by the council?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to recommend granting the special permit. Is there discussion thereunder?
Can I make a suggestion?
Councilor McGivern,
The maker
recognized.
of the motion, you might want to add conditions.
I would like to add a condition to the number of parking spaces that the business can use.
Say it into the mic, please.
The one condition I'd like to add is that this business is allocated 21 parking spaces on the property.
Okay, the motion to approve has been amended. Has that been seconded?
Second.
Okay. Motion is to approve the special permit with a condition to ensure a minimum, is that what the motion is? Minimum of 21 spaces? Or just a total of,
Max of 21 spaces.
a maximum,
That 21 spaces on the property will be allocated to this use.
that 21 spaces will be allocated. Are there any other amendments? Councilor McGivern?
21 cars. I think we normally would have the amount of cars available to be sold distinguished.
That's in here as 17, right?
Sure. You can make it fully specific, with 17 spaces available for vehicles for sale, 2 spaces available for employee parking, 2 spaces available for customer
Can I
parking.
get a second on that, please?
Second.
Okay.
Hit the letter of the...
So the motion as amended is on the floor. I'm not going to repeat it because I've already said it 3 times. Any other amendments? Counselor?
I don't have any amendments. I was just making a friendly suggestion.
Thank you for the suggestion.
Counselors? Okay, hearing no other further discussion on the motion as amended.
Aye.
Say you?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Okay, so that's 4-1 recommended to be approved. Mr. Bell, so you heard the subcommittee. Now that's all we are, the subcommittee, and all we just recommend to the city council. Full city council meets conveniently tomorrow at 7 o'clock, and you may want to be here. You don't have to be, but there's always an opportunity to ask other questions at that point. But
Can we get this onto tomorrow's agenda without violating open meeting?
We are on tomorrow's agenda. Counselor Alexander asked a question, can we get it on? We're provisionally on tomorrow's agenda. So just like every other special permit applicant is provisionally on tomorrow's agenda, pending this committee's,
Disposition.
disposition. Thank you, boy. It's great to have somebody who works at a college. He's got a great verbiage. Okay, so, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Councilor LeBron Martinez can be recognized. Sure, of course you can.
So, is it possible for him to probably get a hold of the owner and get that letter stating that they will comply with providing you with a parking lot necessary so that he can have it in for tomorrow, or no? As part of our packet, so when we vote as a group?
Well, just, here's my opinion on that, is that we closed the public hearing, so technically, we're not supposed to take any more information. However, if somebody wanted to send a communication to the city council on any subject under the sun, I suppose they can do that, and we could accept it or not. Okay?
The issue isn't what the owner feels. It's the owner, because the lot's being shared by two businesses, the owner owns the other business, but that's here or there. The issue is, do we have everything per scale delineated on the plan that we're adopting? And it's very difficult to do when there's more than one business. And that's the information that is missing. It's not that the owner is okay with it. We get that. The owner's, I think, is okay with it. The problem is, this could put Mr. Gutter out of business, or business as they know.
Well, okay, councilors, yeah, we can have discussions offline or not, but I think we ran through this. Okay, Mr. Vale, thank you.
Thank you.
Very much, appreciate it. And now, sir,
Let's keep that.
can we hold on to this for till tomorrow?
We're required to keep that, because it's entered into the record. It's a public hearing, we must keep it.
I'm sorry, Joe, for pointing this. You
That's an open
apologize.
meeting law.
You can keep that one, but for the
Well,
record,
I
give 5 copies to the,
Well, that's what, that was my point. So,
that's okay.
so there's one, we just don't have the one submitted to the planning department here, but, so let's just hold on to this for safekeeping, and we'll get you one back, one of the copies back. Thank you. Or we'll make a copy. Okay, next on the hit parade.
Motion to take up item number 4.
Second.
All in favor? Hearing no objections. Item 4, special permit application of Mr. Kevin Tomlinson for a non-conforming use at 16 Maple Street, Holyoke, Mass. Mr. Tomlinson, why don't you come in and join us, and anyone else wants to join us? Okay, so Mr. Tomlinson, and who are we joined with?
This is the realtor for the property owner.
Just turn your mic on. Okay.
I'm Armin Laurishal. I'm the realtor representing the buyer and the seller.
Just, if I could spell your last name, Marvin?
Laurishal, L-A-R-O-C-H-E-L-L-E.
Okay, and your address, sir? Your address?
My home address, or
And your business address, whatever you want.
406 Britton Street, Chicopee, Mass. 01020.
Okay. And Mr. Tomlinson, just your address for the record? I think I have it here, but just,
My home address,
sure.
it's 163 State Street in Chicopee.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Tomlinson. Why don't you, now, this is a public hearing too, all right? So we've got a, okay, so why don't you just kind of give us a little synopsis, and then we'll see if we can open up the public hearing and go from there. So fire away, sir.
I am the owner and manager of the Mary Maids location that currently resides at 1632 Northampton Street here in Holyoke. We've been at that location for 3 years. We currently lease that property, and I am interested in moving my operations to the 16 Maple Street after renovating the property.
It's pretty much a nutshell. So,
Nailed it.
yeah, that sums it right up. I'm gonna, since I'm the chair, I get to ask the questions first.
Okay.
So there's how that works. So Mr. Tomlinson, tell me about Merry Maids. Tell me about the number of employees, and tell me how long you've been in business, that sort of thing.
Okay. I've owned the business since December of 2014, but I did manage the business for the prior 6 years. And currently I have 14 employees, 12 of whom are on the road cleaning houses, 2 office people that are in the office full-time, and I have one sales consultant who is usually on the road.
So you have 15 employees?
Yeah, I'm sorry, 15, yes.
Okay. Great. And just the 12 on the road, so are these all full-time employees, Mr. Tomlinson?
11 are full-time, and I have 1 part-time employee.
And the 2 office and the 1 sales, what are they?
Those are all full-time.
Cool. Okay. And how long has Merry Maids been in Holyoke?
Well, we've only been in Holyoke for 3 years.
Okay.
We were in South Hadley for about 10, I believe.
Okay, and so basically, you own the business since, not even 2 years.
Right.
Not even 1 year. What
Not even 1
am I
year.
saying? Not even 1 year. And so you're leasing now, and now you have an opportunity to buy another property that you feel suits your needs.
Yes.
And you would relocate the business from Northampton Street
Yes.
to the downtown area.
Right.
That's what you're saying.
Maple Street, yes.
Maple Street.
Yeah.
Right, 16 Maple.
Yes.
Okay. I also noticed on here, okay, property was a funeral home. Owner is selling it to a Holyoke business owner who wants to relocate. You say the building is in disrepair,
Yes.
and it's also in a downtown residential zoning. So that's interesting. So how tough a shape is the building?
I mean, the building itself, it needs a roof. It has some mold issues inside. It's going to need, the parking lot will need to be repaved at some point. It hasn't been maintained in 10 years. So, the obvious overgrown trees and brush.
It was broken into and some of the plumbing was stolen.
And either one of you, if you want to address, what's your timeline? I don't want to know anything about budget.
6 months.
6 months.
Yes.
Okay, 6 months.
Yep.
Okay. And so once you rehabbed it, when would you think you would look to take occupancy?
My lease is currently up. I'm signing a 1-year extension, but I do have an option to leave in 6 months. So the 6-month timeline is really what I'm hoping for.
Okay, all right, so that's it for me. I'm going to recognize Councilor Alexander first. Councilor Alexander.
Thanks. Hi, thank you. That's a great little location. I hope it works out because it'd be nice to have somebody in there and you'll have, park-like views out your windows and everything. It's really quite nice. I have a couple of questions actually for Marcos. To my knowledge, we don't have a special permit process for non-conforming uses, and I know we don't grant variances for non-conforming uses. Is this actually a non-conforming use in DR, or is it an allowed use by special permit?
So what happens in the
This would be
DR?
office use, I assume, right?
What happens in the DR is that you can have commercial use on the first floor, if you go by 8.8.2.1, but you would have to have dwelling units on the second floor, at least 2 dwelling units. However,
It's a one-story building.
correct. That's why 8.8.3 has an exception, which is this special permit process.
Okay, so it's not a non-conforming use, it's just a use that requires a special permit.
It's a non-conforming use that has a special permit that can be allowed as
Okay.
an exception.
Semantics, but okay, I'm happy. I had one other question for you. I'm sorry. So you've got a dozen people on the road out cleaning houses. Do they come into the office every day, or
They do
stop by
report in the
periodically?
office into the morning, but it's, they usually report at between 7:30 and 9.
Do they get like a daily job sheet or
Yes,
something?
yes.
Okay, I
They
see.
come in the morning, they get their work orders for the day, and, you know, usually less than half of them come back to the office, you know, close a business.
Okay.
But they
and-
do come in at staggering times. They don't all come in at, let's say, 8 o'clock in the morning. They come in at staggering times.
Do you have any customer visits at all?
No.
So your
In the
outside
past 3
salesperson
years, yeah, in the
knocks on doors
past
or
3
whatever.
years, we've probably had 2 customers just stop in,
Gotcha.
so.
And I guess my last question then is, I've walked by the building a few times. I know the building. What I don't remember is what the parking situation is.
I
Off-street
believe there's
parking.
16 parking spots there.
That are off-street, that are lined,
Off-street,
or, you know, at
yes.
least paved parking off-street.
Yes.
That is all of my questions. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, and just to Marcos's point, I hope I shipped this to all the committee, but, and Marcos, I called together Mr. Burkott's and Marcos's emails, and, you know, this is really getting into the weeds, but I'm just gonna say it just for the record, okay? So don't like fall asleep, but, basically, there is this exception under Mass state law that says if the building has masonry construction and it has architectural or other features deemed appropriate for rehabilitation by the city council, then we can grant a special permit. Now, I have no idea what any of that means, because nobody has any idea what any of that means, but that's it. Masonry we figured out, but then we know that, Counselor, but architectural or other features deemed appropriate for you know, okay, we don't know what that means. So Counselor McGivern is recognized next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question for the law department. Marcus, I guess you're representing the law department this evening, according to my
I hope you
email
don't get
from
sued on my
Attorney
advice.
Cunha. No, we won't hold you that far. Mr. Thomason, welcome, and we hope that, you know, Mary Maids will continue to do business in the city of Holyoke, and we can work with you. And this piece of property, which has been vacant for more than 2 years, I think it's more like 10 years,
It's probably in 10 years.
and, you know, it's certainly something that we'd like to see saved, which we all know needs an occupant, you know, number one, and certainly meaning that the correct work can be done to put the building back into good shape. I get the non-conforming. Chairman Bartley explained, you know, the part of it that the city solicitor is telling us, but I've only seen a handful of these requests over the years, and this one's a little different because the zoning of what was the funeral home has changed since the funeral home went out of business. The downtown zoning was not in existence 10 years ago.
Is that a question?
It's kind of a statement question.
Oh, okay.
The question is, non-conforming usually is something that is replacing, that is less detrimental to the neighborhood, a less detrimental use to the neighborhood than the one that was part of a grandfather condition. And when you stated this evening and what I see in this email, it takes it another step as to the new zone allows part of the business to exist.
So let me explain what I was explaining earlier in plain English and without the numbers. In a downtown residential zone, you can have business on the first floor as long as you have residential on the upper floors. Now, there's an exception built into the ordinance that says if a property has been vacant and it's of masonry construction, and essentially if the council thinks there are attributes, architectural or otherwise, that you think it's a good use for it, you can allow it in there. So it's completely up to your discretion, basically, to say, sure, you can go in there.
So my real question is the definition of what I've always understood non-conforming to be is not that. What was the prior zone before we changed the zone of the property?
the prior zone to that, I mean, it would be sometimes in the 80s or the 70s. I have no idea.
No, because the zone you're citing is less than 10 years old.
Oh, well, then it would be in the early 2000s.
Do we know the prior zoning of the parcel?
Well, the owner's been paying commercial real estate taxes ever since they've owned that business, even when it was turned into downtown residential. So I'm assuming it was zoned commercial.
Okay. I'll give you an example of where I'm going, and hopefully we can resolve it this evening real quick, is if you remember the gas station on Lincoln Street owned by Mike Lemke, when he wanted to put a car wash in, you know, he was looking at a non-conforming use because that zoning is not, at the time, was not, when the business was started, the gas station, you know, business was started, was not zoned for gas stations. I think it actually started pre-existing zoning within the city. And that's where we get into non-conforming uses of existing businesses in inappropriate zones. Perhaps in a residential zone, because at the time, nothing said you couldn't have a business in a residential zone.
Right. At times, the city, for whatever policy reasons, may choose to zone an area a certain way, and it creates a nonconformity from an existing business with the idea that eventually, over time, that lot, that site will become conforming to what the site creation goal is. So, I'm not familiar with the specific example you're citing in terms of the car wash, but presumably at some point the city decided we want this area to be residential. Notwithstanding that there is a gas station there, eventually it will conform to the policy regime that would be the zoning in place there. In this case, it was rezoned to downtown residential. If the existing business, the funeral home which was there, had continued to operate, it would have been pre-existing non-conforming. At the time that it closes down, then it creates a situation where there's just no use there. So presumably, they would have to meet the new use, but as stated by Councilor Alexander, it would have to have.
So it's the
additional
reverse
uses
of what I was referring to. It's the city actually changed the zone. Not the zone was inappropriate, but the city changed the zone to something that
As any zoning, it issues
partially
constraints.
fit the use of the funeral home. And now we're dealing with it because it's been vacant for 2 years. Does the proposed use have to be on record declared as less detrimental, or is that not part of the ordinance?
Nope, there are only two criteria to follow. One is that, three criteria, that it be vacant for at least 2 years, that it's of masonry construction, and that there are architectural or other features deemed appropriate for rehabilitation by the city council. That's it.
Okay. The access to the property is Maple Street? Maple Street
Yes.
being a cul-de-sac that goes down past the building,
Yes,
turns around with Matador Rousel School on the opposite side.
correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Alexander?
Yeah, just a quick thought, and maybe, you know, in terms of like how we're looking at it, non-conforming use normally is the zoning says you can't do this thing, you're doing it because it was already there. In this case, we've got a use, if there was no building there and there was a parcel, assuming that there's lot lines and all that, if you wanted to open Merry Maids, you would simply come in, build a two-story building, stick an apartment up top, put your Merry Maids office in there, it would be conforming. It's not a non-conforming use, it's a non-conforming structure, basically. So the structure doesn't allow us to do what we like to do in DR, but it does allow us to do with the first floor what we like to do in DR. So I don't think we have an issue here.
Well, in fact, that's what the ordinance says, a special permit for non-conforming structures abandoned or not used for more than 2 years. Bingo.
It's a structure, not a use.
Bingo. I think that's where we are. So, all right, now, I think I need a motion.
I think we
Motion-
have to continue with the public hearing because there are people here to talk about this.
Pro and con.
I was going to say motion.
Yeah, we haven't opened up the public hearing yet.
Yeah, we were just listening to his initial.
We kind of had a little
statements.
prelim.
Well, we have to start all over.
Well, hit the reverse, start all over. and-
Motion to open the public hearing.
I know you are, Joe. I'm kidding you back. Okay, so I just a second on that, please?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, open the public hearing?
Aye.
Okay. All right, anyone from the public want to speak for or against this proposal. So just please come to the mic, make sure it's on, just tap it. Just state your name and your address, please.
Linda Rex, Monte de la Rosa School, 25 Maple Street.
Hi, Linda.
I don't know, I thought you were supposed to have gotten a letter from me, but it didn't sound like any referrals were made to the letter. I don't know if I should read it, because I was told by Mr. Allen that it was going to be added to your packets. Nobody has the letter in their packet?
Do I have a letter? Well, what?
It was a letter that I sent last week after receiving the notice.
Ms. Rex, I don't believe I have a letter from you, but let's just comb through this packet.
While you're looking, Mr.
I don't have a letter.
If I could ask a question while you're looking. The owner of the property is Our Lady of the Cross. Am I correct?
What's that?
Who's the actual owner of the property?
Starzik. The old Starzik Funeral Home is still...
Of Mata de la
Oh,
Rosa.
Marta de la Rosa is Our Lady of the Cross and the school.
Okay.
Well,
So I-
it'd be
That's our
diocese of
property,
Springfield.
and a
The
budding
diocese of
property,
Springfield,
and a
probably.
budding property to Starzik's as well.
That's what I'm getting at. Is
Yeah.
as an abutter, as Our Lady of the Cross been notified?
So the appropriate abutter is the
I was notified, but
Yeah, Ms. Rex, just hold on one sec, okay?
Yeah.
Just, okay. So the proper party to be notified would be the property owner, correct? Okay, and that would be either the Diocese of Springfield or
Our Lady of the Cross.
the pastor at Our Lady of the Cross.
Correct.
Okay. Now, I don't have the abutter notifications in front of me, but this was, per Mr. Ryan Allen, properly noticed, and butters were notified, though I don't have a packet in front of me that says that.
they were. Copy
Okay,
to Our
so-
Lady of the Cross, Monte de la Rosa School.
So Miss Rex, when I say Miss Rex, then you talk.
Mrs. Rex.
When I say Mrs. Rex, then you go, and until that time, you just kind of hold on, okay? Hold the phone. Okay, so, Council Alexander, you submitted a comment, I didn't quite get it, so if I could just...
Said, I think, again, on a practical level, we have a representative of the abutter in front of us.
Okay. But this is open, up to the public, so Mrs. Rex, fire away.
All right, I'll read you the letter since I was told you got it and you didn't. I'm happy to see that somebody is interested in developing the old funeral parlor at 16 Maple Street, but I do have concerns about who may be occupying the building and how many people. During certain periods of the day, there's very heavy volume of traffic because of drop-off and pickup at the school. Buses have to turn around in the cul-de-sac in order to drop off students in the AM and pick them up in the PM. Parents drop off students in the AM, and they can number 50 cars or more during that time, which is anywhere from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock. The school has always asked parents not to park on Maple Street during the AM hours because of the traffic congestion it causes. Some parents drop off students at the corner of St. Colby and Maple Streets because of the congestion. The school has in the past been able to put up barriers at the break between the two buildings in order to stop traffic from parking in the cul-de-sac, which, while it allowed for student use, kept people from parking in the area and hindering bus pickup in the afternoon. Many people used to come in, park whichever way, didn't have to be along the curb line, might have been straight on, which also caused issues when it was time for pickup. It has not been uncommon for people with pickup trucks to put their trash into the park receptacles and park there for a while. And the dumpster pickup for us happens to be right there, which, again, we have to worry about who's parking where. I am aware that there is a parking lot in back of Starzik, since I went there several times through the years. Our concern was, is that going to be the primary use of parking for the business? And last but not least, it's apparent that in the city of Holyoke, parochial school children are not equal to public school children because we do not have traffic signs, caution signs indicating that there are school zones. Last year there was a crosswalk that was okayed, for our children from pre-K to be able to cross into our parking lot. That still has yet to be painted. So we have to put our teachers and older students in the streets in order to help students cross. I want to make sure my kids are safe. I don't care what goes there or who goes there, but unfortunately, you go around my school, you have no idea there's a school there. There's no lights, and I'm sure, and I know it's the same at Blessed Sacrament and St. Paul's. Yet, I'm surprised that when I go up in Morgan Road or just beyond off Northampton Street, we have public roads that have speed bumps. I have nothing. I want to make sure my kids are safe. I can't be guaranteed that there's not going to be somebody racing in to, go in and get a job card or doing this or doing that. And that is my primary concern. And it's a primary concern of a lot of parents. Bad enough I have to deal with dirt bikes in the park that going 40 miles an hour during the day that I've reported several times. And if we had speed bumps from that skate park up into that section where the elderly walk, we might not have those dirt bikes riding through. I had a child who was going in an ambulance. Dirt bike is coming by. What kind of protection can I guarantee my parents and my students? That's all I'm asking. Obviously, nobody else has thought about it. Nobody else is worried about it. I was in the school system for over 32 years. My kids were always my primary concern then, and just because I retired and went to a parochial school, they are still my primary concern. But they don't seem to be the primary concern of a lot of other people who should be thinking of all children equally, especially when I'm a taxpayer, a big taxpayer in the city of Holyoke, have several properties, pay lots of money, and so don't a lot of my friends and family. I'm not asking for a lot.
Do you want to address Mrs. Rex?
I have a question.
Councilor Valentin. Sure.
Thank you. Hi, Mrs. Rex.
Hello.
You mentioned something about crosswalk being painted, being approved, but that hasn't happened. Is that an order that was filed?
Ms. Shatanoff filed an order last year, or actually the beginning of this year.
Okay.
And it was supposed to have been passed, and it was supposed to have been in some kind of position to be painted, but it has not been painted yet.
So basically, the way the process works, and I'm sure you're familiar with it because you've been in the city for a long time, is that if an order is presented and it's voted on by the council and it passes, it gets referred to that department. So something like that would have been referred to DPW. So obviously, I'm not going to speak for Councilor Lebron Martinez, who's your ward councilor, but I'm sure we'll be happy to follow up on that because obviously if this is something that happened, then we need to make sure that if the ball was dropped somewhere that we're picking it up. So I'm sure Councilor Lebron Martinez will pick up on that. You talked about some times in terms of the drop-offs for the kids and all of that. So Mr. Tomlinson, what are the hours of operation for you?
Our regular hours of operation are from 8 to 5.
Okay.
But I usually come in and open things up around 7.
And is this Monday to Friday, or is it 7 days a week? Or?
No, it's Monday through Friday. On Saturdays, we operate from 9 to 1, but it's really a skeleton crew on Saturday.
Okay, and Saturdays would not be an issue, obviously, with
No.
Mrs. Rex's concerns. So, okay, those are the questions I had. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Mrs. Rex, I don't have any other questions for you, so thank you.
I do.
Sorry. Xander, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Hi, thanks for coming down. You mentioned a lack of school zone signage on Maple Street or
On any street around my school. We have no signage whatsoever to indicate that there's a school anywhere on Maple Street.
They're all public streets, correct?
They're on public streets.
Okay, so that's something, I'd be happy to do it, but I think go through your ward counselor. I'm sure Gladys would be happy to file an order to get a couple of signs put up. I don't think the fact that it's a parochial school is going to stop that in any way. They don't require, there's no law change that's required to put up a caution sign. Should be relatively easy to get some of those considerations.
Might
that you
even stop
mentioned.
some of those cars that park in our parking lot from New Hampshire and Vermont to do business.
That would probably be a helpful thing too. I think that does kick in some of the penalties for illicit activity go up if it's a designated school zone.
Exactly.
So that might deter some of that.
Exactly, and I know we've helped catch some people by reporting.
Speed bumps are a nightmare, so I'm not
No,
going
and
to
I
suggest that
understand-
that's a good solution. It's
And
a
I
horrible, horrible
understand
thing
that,
to try and get through.
but my point was, nothing indicates that there's any kind of
Sure. So I think some school
child,
zone
you know, and
signage
child
is a
safety.
good thing. You know, slow, caution, school zone, whatever. Whatever's the normal standard signage. And then finally, I just want to be clear. Is there anything about this particular business that you feel is going to bring...
I don't have a problem if he's going to fix the parking and he's going to be primarily parking back there.
I mean, I'm hearing
like
it-
I say, I literally, like today with the early dismissal, it creates all kinds of havoc. Buses don't run on time. Then you have extra people coming to pick up children because, they want to make sure they get them to whoever they're supposed to get them to.
Thank you. Thank you.
So-
And to the applicant, though, you're intending all of your cars will come in, go immediately into your parking lot,
Yeah,
which is in excess of the total number of employees, and you have no customer visits.
Yeah, we don't have any reason to
So,
park on the street.
I'm seeing no conflict here. I think what you're going to have is somebody fixing up a building that frankly right now is an attractive nuisance that you don't need next to a school.
Oh,
So
no,
I
and
think
I
that's
don't
a-
have an
that's a
issue
big
with it
plus for
because
you.
my last report was the fact that they were hiding backpacks in bushes and being picked up by different people, so.
Nice. So thank you again, Mrs. Rex.
Okay.
Councilor Brown Martinez?
Mrs. Rex, I just want to say that this is actually, for me, the first time that I've heard that there was a need in that particular area, and I do not recall that Mrs. Shatner did file an order, but feel free, whenever you think there's a need of any source in that area, I'm going to go, see you. Let's take a walk together. I just finished doing that for Lawrence School. We did it also for Kelly School, so I'm really, open-minded to things like that, so please consider me whenever you feel there's an issue, and I'm willing to help. Thank you.
All set? Okay. All set, okay. No, just... Is there anyone else from the public who want to speak? For or against?
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Motion's on the floor to close the public hearing. No further discussion on the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Councilor McGivern?
Make a motion to adopt the non-conforming permit with the conditions as stated for the masonry work and the architectural improvement.
A second friendly amendment, that we find that the building is worthy of saving and recommend granting the permit.
Okay. On the amended motion, do you have a second?
Can you repeat that, Gordon, the language?
That our finding... Sorry, that our finding is that the building meets the criteria for allowing the special permit, and therefore we recommend granting the permit.
Second.
Okay, on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, 5-0. Mr. Tomlinson, so you heard what I said earlier. We will take this up tomorrow.
Yes,
We just recommend, that's all we do.
yep, okay,
We just recommend stuff.
okay.
And then, so city council meets tomorrow at 7 o'clock. I would just say you've heard the concerns of the abutter,
Okay.
so keep that in mind.
Yep,
And then,
absolutely.
we'll see how it rolls tomorrow, okay?
Absolutely, thank you very much.
Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for choosing to keep your business in Holyoke.
Thank you.
And moving it downtown.
That's right.
3 more people getting a cup of coffee in the morning.
Yep.
Okay.
A motion
well,
to take
this
up item
committee's
number
fine.
5.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of that, aye, it says 5.2 on my agenda, why is that?
There's
special permit
two
applications.
applications. Yeah.
All right, so,
Outdoor sales and repair garage.
okay, so the orders are special permit applications for Mr. Alfonso Woods at 395 Maple. 1, an application for an outdoor sales lot for new and used motor vehicles and trucks and marine and rec vehicles establishment, an application for motor vehicle repair garage at the same location. So this is this Mr. Woods?
Yes.
Oh, nice to meet you, sir. So this is a public hearing, but Before we get a motion to open a public hearing, I just prefer to hear from the applicant first. So if you would, sir.
Joe's making a face.
Well, you can, Joe, the vice chair can make all the faces he wants, but this is
I'm
the.
not making a face, Mr. Chairman, I mean, please.
Yeah, I know you're not. So I wasn't.
If we're gonna have anything on the record, we need to open the public hearing.
Well, it's in the public meeting record. This is a public meeting.
Just,
It's a public
you know, and I don't mind doing that, it's just, this is the way the ordinance committee has done it since I've been on that. There's kind of a preliminary thing, but it really doesn't matter. So let's just do it, if that's the right way, Joe, let's just do it if you feel that's the right way. I mean, I never heard an objection for all the other public hearings that any of us were involved with at ordinance, that we do it in this order. But that's my only point, so let's get a motion.
Well, motion to open the public hearing, and by face, I just meant that he kind of had the face of confused, like, this,
Oh,
is
good.
this how we should go? Just for the record.
Just open a public hearing, so on the motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all right. All in favor, aye. Okay,
Aye.
public hearing is now open. All right, so we are now of record. Mr. Woods, very nice to meet you, sir.
Thank you.
Why don't you tell us, tell the committee what's in the plan?
Okay, I plan to open a 20-car lot thing for sale cars and 4 spots for like repairs of the car lot itself, right? For when I'm selling cars, the cars need to be fixed. I'll fix whatever needs to be done. It's not for like other people or anything, somebody for some other kind of business for fixing other people's cars. Okay, this is something that I'm trying to do with my son, okay, and you know, it's something I want to do. I'm a 30-year truck driver, and I'm trying to change my profession. From what I see, from when I looked at the car dealership, it looks pretty good, and I think it would turn out to be a pretty good business. I plan on operating within the law of whatever that you say that I need to do. Follow any standards that needs to be done, okay?
And Mr. Woods, I appreciate that. So, so you've got an application to sell 20 vehicles, a repair license for 3 vehicles. Okay, Mr. Marrero, I have in front of me, at least I had it, at one point. Buried here, sir. Okay. Oh, that's okay. Ms. Merrill, I have the letter, again, not the recommendation. I appreciate the clarification last time. I have the letter from Mr. Burkott. Why don't you sort of walk us through this, if you would, please, Ms. Merrill, as to the letters we received for motor vehicle repair and motor vehicle sales.
Well, again, I have to apologize due to the meeting schedule that we had over the past couple of days. I haven't been fully briefed on this in a while, so I'm not ready to do a full presentation on it. But from my memory of the last briefing, the major issue that we were facing with looking at this application is very similar to the other special permit that we're talking about the first time around, which was the absence of a scalable plan and it being drawn by hand. So it's hard to make very firm judgments based on that. The lot has 2 different office uses, but it's unclear what the second use is. The owner is going to retain a small office. We don't know if that's an issue or not. If the owner's here, maybe they can clarify that. And then there's going to be 2 bays that requires 8 parking spaces for those bays. They've stated that one of them is just to prepare the cars, but I mean that a bay can be used for whatever. You know, business plans can change, and ultimately it's about the use, not about the business plan when they're starting up. So the ordinance doesn't really allow us as staff to differentiate amongst that. I don't have the site plan in front of me, again, because I couldn't confirm with staff before coming here. My recollection is that there may have not been enough parking on the site to support the 8 parking spaces required plus the 20 on the sales, but maybe that can be addressed by the applicant at this time.
Okay, Ms. Merrill, thank you. Mr. Woods, were you President for Angel Bale, before when we were talking, he's doing something similar, 9 Avon Place, and we asked him to provide a scalable plan, and this
Okay.
is, am I saying it, it's a scalable plan? Yes, thank you, sorry.
Yes.
All right. So, this is, yeah, you can see, Mr. Wade, this is drawn up by a, stamped by an engineer and all the rest of that, so it kind of shows, the whole layout.
Okay.
And so, we're not trying to get in your pocket here with an expense, but I'm just saying, it just makes our job just a little simpler to see kind of layout. So you heard discussion earlier,
Okay.
around and around we went about parking.
Right.
And is there sufficient parking? Because, the ordinance says what it says, you've got to have a parking spot, 310 square feet is a parking spot.
Okay.
And you're saying 20 cars for
20
sale?
cars, yes.
Plus an X number for repair, so
For repairs.
23. And
Yeah,
how many employees do we want to have?
It's just gonna be me and my son.
So 2 employees, so you
Right.
would need, 2 spaces or 3 spaces? Well, whatever it is. It's 2 for every 3. Okay, so you need 2 spaces for every 3 employees, so you need 2 spaces.
Okay.
So that's got to be sort of mapped out on a plan. And so what I had in your packet, sir, are things that were, downloaded from the city's assessors and planning board maps, but they don't really, to my eye, it's just hard to discern exactly from these where the parking spaces are. Let me ask you this. Mr. Woods, what was your, what's just getting to your, what's your timeline to start this business?
Well, I wanted to start it before the end of this month. The owner said we can move into it about around the middle of this month.
Okay, so you'd be renting, sir?
Yes.
Okay. And did the owner say to you, like, put a deadline on you, or did the owner say, let those folks at city council, what did they say?
He said he
If you could just identify yourself and turn the
Yes.
mic on. Okay.
He said he was hoping to get us in for October 1st.
Your name, sir?
Jason Moriarty, Alfonso's son.
Oh, hey, Jason, how are you?
How you
Good, thank
doing?
you for coming down, Jason. All right, and Jason, your address?
Say again?
Your address, please?
You say?
Your address?
Oh, 64 Montgomery Street, Indian Orchard, Mass.
Got it. Thank you, sir. Okay. All right, so, and you've reviewed this letter, these letters, I should say, dated September 3rd?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, you've had a chance to look these over. All right. So the zoning is okay. Did anyone want to ask a question while I sort of scan through this again? Counselor Alexander?
Yeah, so it sounds like the one thing we're missing is we need a plan that actually lays out the parking. You've got a letter from planning that says this is how much parking you need. We
Right.
need to see a plan that shows each parking space
We actually did that.
scaled properly, not hand-drawn,
Okay.
laid
All
out
right.
so that the planning department can say, yes, those are 310 square feet each based on the scale on the plan.
Right. Well,
And we can
that
be
was-
assured that it meets the requirement.
Yes, that was said to us. Actually, the owner, Sam, was there drawing it out, like you said, and Michael, I think his name, Michael from building in, what's his name?
Marcos? Michael in the building department?
I can't remember.
I forgot his name. I think it
Jeff?
was Mike, Jeff, or
Jeff?
one of the, it might
We
have
have
been
a Jeff. I don't think we have
have it
Mike.
written down somewhere, but I think it was on what's the name of that building behind here?
The annex?
Yeah, the annex. We went there and they explained to us that what he had on file wasn't good enough. That was from the previous when he first bought the lot. So we asked him to make sure that he has one, like you said, scaled out. And I'm not sure if Sam turned it in yet or anything like that, but I was communicating with Sam through text messages. He's out of town.
Okay.
So that is something that he said that he'll have turned in for you guys.
Okay, so that's something we absolutely need before we
Yes.
can act and provide a recommendation to the council. And if you were here for the previous discussion about the Avon Place project, were you guys in here for that?
Yes, oh yes.
Okay, so you know one of the issues that we got a little bit tangled up on was what's the other pre-existing use on the site? So if just, a narrative paragraph, the other pre-existing use is an office, there are 2 employees, they park 2 cars there, just so we have an understanding of what
The
that
other
additional load
one,
is.
I think, is being just used for him as office space and for him to wholesale cars, like to not put anything on the lot itself.
Sure.
So that way he
Paperwork,
can still
paper
go,
sales, not
and still
actual
go
sales.
to auctions and wholesale cars.
So just,
So
how
that's
how
what
many
that is. I
cars,
think
if it's
like a
just
one
him,
car.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Just something in writing that says
Right.
that would be good, from him, as the owner.
Right.
Marcos, quick question. I had thought, and I'm probably just misremembering, just clarify it for me, that, hang on one second. You guys, your plan is to sell cars and to repair the cars you're selling, not to
Yes,
repair
not
other
open to
cars
the
for
public.
fee to the public.
No, it's not, no.
There is a different parking requirement for if the repairs are for the cars being serviced to be sold, correct? Or is that like so deep in the weeds that I need Jeff for that?
Yeah, probably. But I mean, the issue is the bays are there. They could be used. Once you have the license to repair, you can.
But I think it's a
repair at any
separate
point.
permit. I think there's, if I remember correctly, and I guess I'm asking you to just bounce this off Jeff. There is a sales permit which allows a certain amount of repair.
Right. When
In
you
which
have
case you would have bays. And if we issue only that permit, there'd be a lower parking requirement than if we also issue a repair permit, which would allow you down the road, should your business plan change, to repair cars 4 feet to the public. And would require more parking.
So yes, my understanding is very similar. When you have a special permit for sales, you are allowed to bring in a car to just bring it up to the point of selling it. But here are 2 special permit applications for 2 different things. One is sales, which allows what you just described, and the other one is for repair.
Correct. So what I'm suggesting is the second permit application is not something they're looking to do. And if it turns out that it's driving a parking requirement that you can't meet,
Right.
you're not looking to do that business, you don't need to file that application, you can withdraw it.
Right.
Because you're allowed
okay.
to repair the cars you're selling under the sales permit.
Okay. Now, what would be the
Yes.
difference if we just still went ahead and applied to have it for both purposes? If we were to do
If you
that?
can get both permits, if there's enough parking to get both permits,
Yeah,
then the permit's there if you decide to use it in the future.
Right. Well, from the blueprint that was, obviously it's not that, like
Mm-hmm.
you set up to scale, but it was enough of parking there for that too.
So then feel free to move forward with both.
Okay,
but,
that's
but
what I
understand
figured.
you don't need both in order to do what you're suggesting you want to do
right.
right now today.
Yes, I was
Okay.
aware of that.
Okay.
Counselor, but I mean, if I may, I would have to confer with Jeff Burkott because he has been speaking to them before. So I mean, that is my understanding, but I can't for sure say
But these
that's
guys
the
want
case.
both permits anyway, so even though their business model isn't to use both right away. So, thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other committee members. Councilor McGivern?
Do we have a letter from the owner?
I don't have a letter similar to what we have for non-Avon. I don't have that.
We should ask for that along with the statement of what the parking for the alternate use, because it is the owner is the other user.
And Mr. Woods,
Yes.
the number of cars you wish to keep on the lot for sale,
It's 20.
20,
Yes.
and what, not scalable map, but how many parking spaces are there available for your business?
That's what he's giving me, 20 spaces for 20 cars.
Okay, but what about the employees?
But it's actually more spaces.
Hold on, let me see here.
No, I understand, but they got to be assigned to the special permit.
A special permit?
You're applying for a special permit,
Yes.
so the special permit has got to distinguish the amount of spaces that you need for cars to be sold
Okay.
on display, employees, then we'll get into the employees of the repair bays and that part of it, and customers.
Okay.
And then you also need space for a dumpster.
That's already
Yes,
there.
The dumpster's there. There's
The
space for a
dumpster's there.
dumpster.
This is where we get into the problem of the sharing the parcel with another business.
He's not, it's not gonna be sharing, he's just having an office there. He's not gonna have anything to do with selling cars there. So he's not selling a vehicle, the owner will not be selling, not one vehicle of his will be on that. He's using it for wholesaling around at different auctions and he's never parking his cars.
I appreciate that.
And he needs that.
I appreciate that. But when you read the ordinance, when you read the zoning, the very existence of that business says there has to be X amount of parking for the business.
Right. Okay. Now there is.
So it has to be there even if he's not using it.
Right there, it is there. He has it on the one.
And
I know he hand drew it. I don't think it's there if they had it or whatever, but he left one slot just for his, in case he had one car there. So it was there.
If that meets the requirement, that's great. And that's all we're trying to find out.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And there
no,
were
no offense.
No, there were
you
employees involved, like employee slots involved, and for the repair shop slots as well. So there's enough to accommodate what we're applying for. All the slots are accommodated. So I mean, he was supposed to bring in he's renting us the lot. So he should have had submitted that to the guy that told him to bring it in. He did a sketch right there, but the guy said, please make sure you bring in like that one right there. So that's why I was worried about, and I was texting him about it. I said, what if they don't have, because I seen him pull that out, and I know we didn't have that in our hand. And I said, that might be an issue here today. And he said, no, what they have on file should be enough. Let me know if you have any problems. And I'm going to call him as soon as I leave here and tell him what's going on, because this is going to hold us up. And I want to, obviously open up and get to business. And I'm pretty sure he wants us to get to business because he's collecting rent and so forth. So, I mean, maybe if that can be something that we bring tomorrow night or something, maybe he can rush and have it done, but it's holding us up, and I'm kind of upset.
Are you going to have a mechanic on site full-time?
No, just my dad right now working on cars.
You do mechanical work.
Yeah, me too. He taught me how to work on cars too, so whatever we need to fix.
Could you teach me?
Sure, come on down, I'll help you. I'll teach you how to do a little bit.
Marcus, do we have anything on file from the existing business?
What we had on file was for the previous business that was there. That was very similar. It was some sort of car sales or car repair. And the existing site plan was also hand-drawn from several years ago. It's very similar to what we receive now.
Were there any complaints about this lot?
I don't know. We didn't receive any other comments from any other department, so.
Not your business, but the one that was there. Thank you.
Councilor Alexander, please.
Thanks. So just to be clear, you've filed for 2 permits.
Yes.
You have a sketch, or at least you've walked the property and the owner has said, here are your 20 spaces for the cars you're going to sell.
Right.
You need 2 spaces for employees, so you've got
Yes.
22.
Yep.
You're going to need, I'm not sure what the number is going to be. It's based on the square footage of the building, which again, we need a plan in order to determine that. But I'm going to say 6 spaces for customers that might show up to buy a car.
Right.
So you've got those.
Yes.
Also, because you're applying for a permit to repair for fee, right? Not the cars you're selling, but other cars.
Okay.
That requires, because presumably it doesn't take all day to repair a car, that you need some place to stick the cars that are queued up waiting to go into the repair bay.
Right.
So I believe it's 8 per bay spaces, so that's another 16. So 22, 6, 28, another 16, 30, 42 spaces or something like that. Are we in the right ballpark here in terms of space on the lot?
Actually, it's actually you saying 8 per bay. That
I believe
sounds
that's the
new
reg.
to me. I thought it was 4 per bay.
How many? 4 per bay.
4 per bay.
Okay. So that knocks
that's
you down
what
by
I was
8.
under the impression of 4.
Okay.
And everything is here. Like this is another rough one that we have. But we have the customers for the repair. We have a slot for every one of those. So if we were to.
So you're confident that if you did an actual drawn, scaled,
Yes.
proper
Oh, yes.
plan, it would pass muster?
100% confident.
Okay, so hold that for a second. Marcos, is there, and I'm not sure you'll have the answer to this, maybe, in fact, Joe, you may know the answer to this. Is there once the city council, if it were to grant this permit, is there a public comment period before the business can actually
Like
start?
a 20-day appeals period or something like
Yeah,
that?
is there anything like that?
It's possible. I'm not sure.
Joe, are you aware? Because the one thing I'm thinking is we could recommend to the council that the council issue the permit contingent on that plan coming in within the 28-day period and verifying that the number of spaces is there.
Which would be.
Otherwise,
okay.
we're stuck waiting for that plan. We can leave the hearing open so we can receive it, but we can't convene a meeting of this committee during a city council meeting tomorrow to receive it tomorrow and act upon it tomorrow, so that's not helpful to you. So, I'm
So
looking
if you
for-
could do that, that
I'm
would
looking
be
for a
great.
way around that. Dave, are you aware of any appeals period on this?
I'm not.
We could theoretically, I'm just thinking out loud here, we could theoretically issue a permit contingent on the plan, et cetera, with a condition that the permit would be revoked if the plan isn't received within,
Right.
or the
Which would
plan
be
doesn't show the correct.
More than reasonable.
Does anybody see a problem with that avenue?
I think we're in the same boat where we have insufficient material placed before us, what's required by the ordinance. And Marcus, if I heard you earlier, there's a question of whether there is enough parking for what's proposed?
That was my memory from the last briefing, which was probably 3 weeks ago at this point. But yes, without a properly scaled plan, it's hard to go by any of the numbers that are provided. And no offense to the applicant, it's hard to do our job if we don't have the proper tool.
Mr. Woods, who, and your son, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Are you Mr. Woods too?
Yes.
Moriarty?
Who did you work with in the city?
In the city, you mean as my profession?
No, who'd you come to in the city to find out what you need to do to get this application through?
We went to
I forgot the person's name.
the city.
Well, see, I let my son kind of like handle it because I'm a truck driver. And
Yeah, so he authored. We did
I,
like
spend most of my
a
time
certified
driving out on the
letter,
road.
like he's
so.
on the road, so I can handle a lot of his stuff. So what I did was I went downstairs in the same building here, and they gave me some papers and told me what I needed to do. And then I took care of that, paid the fees, and then they sent me over to the building inspector, which is the blueprint. And we went in there, and they looked in the files, and they said, okay, well, draw one up now. The guy seemed very nice. I forgot his name. I guess I don't know what his name was. But he said he told the landlord, Sam, that he needs to bring in a full spec of the layout and stuff. But what we did and everything, he's seen that everything was spoken for. The 5 feet from the fence, customer parking, all the slots were everything was, basically ready to go for what we were asking for. So, I mean, basically I'm shorthanded that right there, the blueprint. But everything did, scale out to what we're asking for. And we wouldn't ask for it if it wasn't, we're not going to cram a bunch of cars in there that's not going to fit.
It's already an existing car lot there.
Yeah, but it's a 15 car lot license there. And for the pre-existing was 15 car lot license. And we were asking for 20. So with that being said, they had, a little bit smaller, 5 less cars. So.
Is the pre-existent still open?
Yeah, it's still open.
Still open?
Yeah, it's still up and going.
So this is just a transfer. This is not.
Exactly.
In my book, there is and should always be transfers because otherwise we put people out of business or we don't give people the ability to sell their business.
Marcus,
Special
did you want-
permit should be about use, not about the operations completely.
Marcus, you want to address that?
The auto sales permits don't transfer. They have to come whenever there's a transfer in ownership. They have to come in for the new special permit in order for them to become compliant with the ordinance. That's why the process exists. I mean, we're not trying to run anyone through a process they don't have to go through.
Okay. Well, that being said, I mean, I'm just one vote, so I don't make the call here, gentlemen, but the question was raised off mic by Councilor Alexander as to when we'll meet again, and we don't have a set schedule as to when this committee meets. But I'm guessing it would be next month in October. So if it were the will of this committee to ask you to put together a scalable plan similar to what this is, so it sort of lays out exactly for us the number of spaces. Furthermore, you have that September 3rd letter from Mr. Burkott. He pointed out a few other things in the letter, if I may. Pointed out a few other things in this letter, which I know you're familiar with it, but so zoning is good, pavement's good, parking, we've talked about that, required space, talked about that, buffer, lighting, bulk waste containers. So, and I know, Jason, you said you're not going to cram cars in, but, and I have no reason to doubt you, but I mean, there are plenty of dealers here that cram cars in, and I'm sure they didn't. I'm sure they had all good intentions as well. So I guess that's why the ordinances are in place. I don't want to speak for any counselor, but when Marco says, if we have the tools, we can make a better informed decision. So if we don't have the tools, it's tough for us to make the. Again, I'm just one vote, but that's the way it looks to me. So,
I understand.
So and the way it would kind of work, gentlemen, is that if it were the will of this committee to let you get more info, we would, continue the public hearing, so you don't have to advertise it again, but we have to go to a date certain. So, whatever, October 5th, we'll say. I think that's a Monday. So, maybe we would say that, for example. And so, now if that were the case, is that a Monday?
Yeah, but we're all supposed to be at a candidate forum for the youth.
Okay, so there may be a conflict so maybe we picked the week before, Josie. I mean, that's why we got count. I'm just going from my memory. But the next city council meeting is tomorrow. The one after that is October 6th. So
what if we were to get it in by tomorrow? I mean,
well, first of all,
I mean,
if you're thinking you're going to get in this or something similar to this by tomorrow, that's possible. It's very possible.
Anything is possible.
Jason, it's very possible. But here's the thing: we're not going to have, this committee is not going to be able to meet.
What if it was in a like you were saying, like to make sure that was
right for like when we, like you said,
if you can pull the permit if we don't.
Yep, right. That's what I was getting ready to say.
Comply with what you're asking for here.
Well,
I mean,
we can.
If that's something you can do, I'd greatly appreciate it, and we'll get it done.
Do you think realistically you can get this plan tomorrow?
Yes, I will get it done. When you need something done, I will get it done.
That would take a person about 2 days to do.
No, it won't. No, it won't. I mean, it might not be as nice as that, but it'd be better than the handwritten. You would be able to see everything.
No, but this is stamped by an engineer, so this is somebody with a professional license.
Right. I might not be able to get that.
Well, that's what's.
I don't believe that's a requirement. Marcos, the ordinance doesn't require a stamped plan, does it?
No.
It doesn't require a stamped survey plan, but it requires a scalable one. So, for example, the difference would be that's an AutoCAD plan. A surveyor didn't go on the site, didn't survey the site. And when I point to that, I mean the prior special permit. Mm-hmm. So a survey plan would have been a surveyor going on the site and taking survey measurements and then putting it on an AutoCAD. That scalable plan did not include that. It just included them taking the measurements that were provided to them. Some sort of surveyor, but it was cheaper because they didn't survey the site. They just plugged it in and had it drawn up in AutoCAD. So it was scalable because a line that looks like twice the length of another one is really twice the length. assuming the measurements were correct.
Assuming the measurements were correct. Well,
Well,
so what would we need to do? We need to close the public hearing, but keep the record open to receive the plan tomorrow.
yeah, I thought if
we
we
could
close the
do.
public hearing, oh, we can do that?
We can do it. Congress does it all the time.
Well, we can close our public hearing, because I thought when I,
We need to close the public hearing in order to make a recommendation,
well,
to vote a recommendation.
But once the public hearing is closed, no additional information may be received from the public, applicant, or city officials, and there can be no more discussion with the applicant. So that's from the law department. So you want me to read that again?
No, I heard you.
Okay, all right, so,
I disagree with that, but
Counselor Valentin?
separate battle.
I guess I just have a quick question. It's obvious that as applicants, you guys are definitely eager to move forward. I appreciate that, and it's very noticeable, and I commend you on that for your perseverance. I'm like that too. Is there a possibility that, and I know this has happened before, so I'm just kind of putting it out there as a question, not a recommendation right now, but is there a possibility that this committee could convene, let's say, 30 minutes before the city council meeting to receive this document, if indeed it is available and produced?
We would have open meeting law problems, right?
So there's no way to, what I'm saying is there's no way to receive this plan so that, because if we close a public hearing, we can't receive the plan, correct?
Well, here's the thing, you want to rush this, we couldn't give notice that this committee's meeting tomorrow,
That's true, yeah.
right?
Okay.
Okay.
I guess I was just thinking of if the public hearing was continued, then would it be able to be picked up? But I understand what you're saying, so.
Well, it's got to be continued to a date certain, but
Yep.
it also, date certain has to comply with open meeting laws.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, I'm getting the sense that gentlemen, as eager as you are, we're just going to have to do it. I mean, this is not exactly, I don't think this is a slow process, frankly. This is one meeting. To have something continued for one date, assuming you really go through that September 3rd letter and you get a scalable plan drawn by a surveyor, I don't think this is exactly, a tortoise here. I think we're moving at a fair pace, just so you do it right, and we understand it, you do it right, and we can have a informed vote.
Okay.
But that's my opinion. So I'll accept any motion.
Motion to continue the public hearing to the, what'd you say, October 5th?
Well, let's get a date.
So-
I didn't say a date because,
Yeah, so October 5th is the forum for, the candidate forum for city councilors. That's being held by the youth commissioners, and we're all invited to be a part of that. So I would not be available because I'm attending. The 6th is a city council meeting, and the 7th is that candidate forum for the mayoral race as well. So that's a kind of, and the city council meets on the 6th, so I'm assuming you would want it to be before that. So perhaps it would be the last week in September, if that's a possibility for the majority of the committee.
That would be awesome.
well, certainly the 28th is open for me, that's a Monday, and I just prefer a Monday, but I'm just one person, so, the 28th,
This is for a full meeting, multiple items on the agenda, whatever happens. to come up.
we would continue it, and we'd maybe take one or two other shorter things out of the jacket, just to sort of try to pick away at the jacket. So, if,
28th works for me.
Joe,
So 28th, 6:30?
Joe's okay, Gladys?
It works for everyone except me, so go ahead.
It's nice.
Well, what's wrong,
I'm not available, but it works for the four of you.
The 28th?
I'm
I
not
thought that
available.
was the date you just asked for.
No, I said the week before, but it's fine, because four of you is a quorum.
It is, but isn't that the week before? It's the Tuesday before.
it's a Monday before.
It's okay.
Yeah, all right, whatever.
Okay, so we will continue this to, and does 6 o'clock work for everybody?
6:30 would be better for me if that's possible.
Was 6:30 okay with everybody? Joe? No, I'm gonna have to take a couple of things out of the jacket just to keep the world moving here, but But it would be, this would be the first item on the agenda.
That's fine. Just in case, is there anyone else, we ask, is there anyone else in the audience that might be here tonight to speak about it?
I will do that. Okay, thank you, Councilor McGivern. And Councilor McGivern's suggestion, is anyone wants to speak for or against this? Okay, I don't hear anyone. I don't see anyone raising their hands. Thank you, Councilor McGivern. Okay, so gentlemen, we're going to, and Marcos, well, you gentlemen as well, but we're going to continue this to, I'm sorry, Monday, the 28th of September at 6:30 p.m. Now, that being said, before you walk away, I just hope you take a note down or two that we're going to get a scalable plan. We're going to look at the September 3rd letter. We are going to get a letter from the owner indicating his or her feelings about your permit. We are also going to get, lastly, a short narrative on the other use. Just like Councilor Alexander indicated, the other use is name this. They are selling cars for wholesale. They have traffic, 1 car per month. Their business hours are XYZ. End of paragraph. Okay? So a little narrative on that. Do you want me to repeat any of that, gentlemen?
Nope.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
One thing on this plan. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Okay.
So this is.
Now just hold the phone, folks.
Help you if you Xerox it and make it a different size. This shrinks along with the Xerox copy, so it still works. Okay. Off, we can't accept it. All right. All righty.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, just, Counselor, hold on a second. Let me just get a...
Thank you. Appreciate it. Day after my birthday, I'll be here. Birthday's the 27th. Thank you.
Thanks. Take care.
Oh, my God.
Motion to take up item number 6, special
Second.
permit applications for the telecom tower.
Second.
On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now, let me get this, I'll read it off in a second, just hold your horses. Okay, agenda item 6, 2 special permit applications from Sprint Spectrum LP, Sprint and co-applicant T-Mobile Northeast LLC. 1, application for approval of a 199-foot new wireless telecom facility to be located at 200 Northampton Street. 2, special permit application approval of a 199-foot new wireless telecom facility inside the floodplain overlay district. Do I have a motion to open up the public hearing?
Second.
Second.
On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. So we are now live with a public hearing. Councilor McGivern, I love it. Thank you, sir. Change my notes here.
In case the 17 we already have aren't enough, I have one in front of me. Thank you.
So that replaces this one?
Yes, they'll replace.
Replaces this one?
Oh, then, okay, if they've changed, sure.
Thank you. Do you want the previous one back? All right.
Okay. Well, hold on a second. First of all, I told you this is going to be well, we saved you for last. I do apologize. Normally this committee is not quite as active as we were tonight, but really I appreciate your patience. So if you would just kindly introduce yourself to the committee.
Sure, and I appreciate your diligence pursuing, helping those people try and move along their businesses.
We got to, this all teamwork, but please.
Delicate balance between having all the information and trying to help push it through, but in
We'll
any
see,
event.
right?
My name is Michael Dolan. I'm an attorney here from the law firm of Brown Rudnick on behalf of the co-applicants, Sprint Spectrum LP and T-Mobile Northeast LLC. The applicants have FCC licenses, copies of which we've enclosed with our application to operate a wireless telecommunications network throughout the United States, including the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The applicants currently have wireless antenna facilities on the existing 372-foot smokestack located on the Mount Tom Power Station property. And in order to facilitate the decommissioning of the power plant and the smokestack, the applicants have agreed to relocate their antennas to a new structure. In order to do that, we're proposing the construction of a new 199-foot monopole-style tower on the one of the former parking lot areas on the Mount Tom property, which would allow us to continue to provide the wireless coverage in the area that we're currently covering. As demonstrated in the radio frequency engineer's reports and coverage maps that we included with our application, the proposed facility will help the applicants maintain coverage in this area and thereby fill a hole in coverage that they would have if the smokestack were to come down and they didn't have the ability to relocate. The facility will continue to provide coverage for the sections of Route 91 and Route 5 that are currently being serviced, as well as other businesses and residents of the city of Holyoke. Specifically with this facility, and we have some plans that we can get into in greater detail if you'd like. And by the way, the plans we've submitted tonight are updated plans in response to the planning department's comments to our application. There's nothing really significant, and we can go through those changes with you, but we wanted to make sure you had the most current information available. But what we're proposing is each applicant is proposing 9 panel antennas to be located on this new monopole. The T-Mobile's antennas would be at a 195-foot center line mark. Sprint's would be at the 185-foot center line mark. And as a result of the 200-foot limit in the ordinance on the height of a wireless telecommunication structure, the applicants actually will lose some coverage, seeing as on the current smokestack, T-Mobile's at 333 feet and Sprint is at 202 feet. Yes, we will lose coverage, but we think this is a good solution for us to stay within the height limits under the ordinance, yet still provide maximum coverage so we don't have too much of a degradation of service. The equipment and the monopole will be enclosed within a chain-linked equipment compound area, a 74 by 74 square feet, 75 by 75. T-Mobile and Sprint's antennas will be connected to ground equipment on equipment platforms by cabling that will run through the interior of the monopole. And the facility will also include related amplifiers, cables, fiber, remote radio heads, surge arrestor type information equipment that comes standard with these antennas and these wireless facilities. We are pleased in this situation that the owner of this property has afforded us the opportunity to put this facility on their property. From a land use planning perspective, it's an ideal lot in that it's a large 88-tract parcel of land. It's zoned general industry and is not in close proximity to any residential neighborhoods. And we believe that due to the sight lines and tree canopies, the visibility of the monopole will be somewhat limited. In short, a favorable decision on this application would facilitate the reduction of the visual impacts of the bulky 372-foot smokestack by 173 feet vertically, as well as the large mass and width that would go with the smokestack as compared to the more narrow and sleek monopole. As can be seen from the photo simulations that we submitted with our application, the facility will have a minimal visual impact. You can see from the photos how much less of a visual impact that the monopole would have in relation to the smokestack. And all of this was, these photo simulations were the product of the August 4th balloon float simulation that we performed, which is required under the zoning ordinance. The photos of the balloon were taken from, photos of the balloon were a balloon taken, the balloon was flown at a bottom height of 199 feet, and that's where we took the photos from various vantage points, and then from there, put in simulations and renderings of what the facility would look like from that height. That's how we were able to produce those. There's a lot of information in those photo simulations. If you have any other questions about the specifics of how we conducted that. In addition to Sprint and T-Mobile, the tower will also be able to accommodate the antennas of 2 other wireless carriers, which will be able to help prevent the need for any more towers in this area of Holyoke. We've previously met with the Holyoke Planning and Economic Development folks, as well as the Building Department and Legal Department, and in the letter I believe you have to the committee dated September 3, they had several comments to our application, and we've tried to address each of those, some of which required changes to the plans, which I've alluded to earlier. We have made those changes, but so at this point, I want to stop and allow you to ask any questions. But in short, for the reasons set forth in our application and for the reasons I've stated so far and others that will be here tonight, to the extent you have questions, we believe that we've satisfied the burden for the issuance of the special permits for both a wireless communications facility as well as the installation of this facility in the floodplain overlay district.
Okay, Michael, Attorney Dolan, if you will, thank you very much for that synopsis. I did have a chance to review this packet. It's dated now July 28th, or maybe July 31st. Maybe that's where the date is. I also saw the letter here dated September 3rd, obviously subsequent to that date, but what you just said is that, all right, well, just tell me if I'm wrong. So there's a series of questions in this September 3rd letter posed by, Mr. Burkott and others, but he signed it. Did you just tell me that the questions he raised in this September 3rd letter are addressed in this packet that I have dated July 28th?
No.
No, okay, you didn't say that. Now, where did you say, because that wouldn't make sense, but I just want to clarify.
We can.
So where did you say that they were addressed?
They'll be addressed here tonight.
Okay, so they're addressed orally, so they haven't been addressed in writing, okay.
That's correct.
So at a minimum today, possibly we could go through these.
Sure.
Yeah, we could run through these questions here, but I guess I don't want to monopolize either. I just want to be sensitive to others. So I just, let me just ask a basic question right now. You are representing, who's going to own the monopole?
Ultimately, Mount Tom.
Say it again? So the monopole that you're constructing is going to be owned by Mount Tom LLC, is that what you're saying? Okay, and they are the property owners?
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Typically, we would, but given the nature of that property, they want to be able to control the ownership of it, so we will build it and bill of sale it to them.
May I just follow up on that?
Oh, of course, Joe. Yeah, sure.
Mike, when you say Mount Tom, you're talking about Suez?
Yeah, It would be the, hold on one second.
People in the power plant. Yes, Suez,
The owners of the power plant, yeah.
the owners of the power plant.
Which the legal entity name would be whoever, let me just look at the
Yeah, I had it in
letter of
front of me.
authorization.
Joe, anything else?
On property, just my only question, I'm pretty sure that's who it is, but I think I'm getting yeses back. You got a great staff here, you know, jeez.
Hey, we got a great staff.
Where this, what do we call the tower?
I've got more.
Monopole? Where
Monopole.
this new monopole is going to be placed, is that within the parcel known as Mount Tom?
Yes.
And it's not going to be separated? Let me ask a different way. Subdivided, sorry. The future is unknown as to what's going to happen with this property. The city is concerned, the region's concerned, I think the owners are concerned. And, you know, a number of different things could happen. New development down the road, way down the road. So I'm just curious about the location in terms of what the future development of this property is going to be. Is it appropriate? Is it a proper location? Could it stymie new development, you know, depending what that new development is?
Yeah, I mean, we're in very close proximity to the coal ash area. You know, this I think is and it's also not really that developable because of the floodplain, and that's why we're building our equipment we've got platforms for our equipment. So they tried to put us in an area that would have obviously minimal impact on any future development of the property.
Is that part of the concerns of the planning department, economic department? Was that something that was raised?
They didn't raise that
They
at all.
didn't raise that? Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Councilman McGivern always on point, but I got to give props to ours. Well, we don't have a staff, but you know, if we did, it would be just as good as yours. So, now, Attorney Dolan, so that was one question I had that this kind of, so Mount Tom Generating Company LLC is going to be, it owns the property, they're going to own the monopole. T-Mobile and Sprint are going to rent from the LLC. Is that a true statement?
Correct.
Okay. A lease, I should say. Now, the lease itself,
Yeah,
sir.
so what's going to happen is, until the site is built, we will control the construction of it, that we have expertise in that, and then from there, as I alluded to earlier, it will then be transferred to Mount Tom at that point.
Gotcha, great. And I'm gonna get into a couple of your statements in a second, just to not be a wise guy,
Sure.
just get a response. So just preparing you.
That's never a good entree.
Well, you know what? You might as forewarned is forearmed. So the 372-foot smokestack. Okay, is there an indication of when said smokes? Now, is that smokestack coming down? When you say decommissioned, you mean the plant? Is the smokestack itself going to be raised?
Well, it's our understanding it is from the standpoint of we're being told we can't use it anymore.
Okay, how about this question? Is your monopole going up regardless of a plan to raise that smokestack?
Yes.
Okay, so hypothetically, I could be looking at a 372-foot smokestack and a 199-foot monopole. Is that a true statement?
Yes.
Okay, so when somebody says to me that is going to be aesthetically pleasing and a major difference of 178 feet,
Yep.
without me asking a question, I'm saying to myself as just a commoner that I'm going to have only one monopole and no 372-foot smokestack. But now what you just said is something different, something much more nuanced. I could have a 199-foot monopole as well as a 372-foot smokestack.
Yeah.
Right. So that
and to respond to that is I don't own the smokestack. My client doesn't, so they can't contractually tell you now that that's coming down.
But what you said to me is that for aesthetics, that your 199-foot monopole is much more aesthetically pleasing
Correct.
than a 300, which is a true statement.
Us making an assumption.
But it's less aesthetically pleasing than having a smokestack and a monopole.
That is true as well. What I'm saying, though, is we've made the assumption, and based on our discussions with the owner, that it is their intent to take it down. Hence, that's why they've told us we can't stay on it anymore. So we're making those assumptions.
I'll bet that's true. I'd love to have that. I'd love to have that in writing.
Yep.
A written statement, doesn't have to be notarized or anything fancy, but a written statement from Mount Tom, or whoever they are, the LLC, that it is coming down, it is going to be decommissioned, this is when it's going to happen, and it should take, we're going to start at this point, it's going to take X amount of time. Because I got to be honest with you, I certainly want to help you and your company come to Holyoke. Very happy to help pitch in any way we can, though I don't necessarily agree with all your promises that you said earlier, but I certainly don't want to make that vote until I know for a fact that smokestack is going to be no longer with us. Now, they could say to you, yeah, you've got to put to your clients, that they've got to pull their equipment off the smokestack, but that doesn't do us any good from aesthetics.
From our perspective, what that does do, though, is it puts us in a position where we have a gap in coverage, and we have to provide service and have the right to provide service in that area. And we would be arguing that, independent of the smokestack, that this was a reasonable solution to fill that gap in coverage.
Oh, no, and I'm not going to argue with that for half a second. But when somebody's coming in with an argument and premises based upon aesthetics, which are obviously important to me and to Holyokers, and then we don't really have all our answers, I don't want to have any gaps in coverage. I don't want to I saw all the cases cited and all the rest of that, and we have executive session hearings all the time here, and all the folks suing Holyoke and all the rest of that. It's unpleasant to hear it. I don't want to add to it. Yep. So let me make
You're right. They are independent discussions in some respects.
Yes.
I agree.
But we have to know. Now, okay, so that kind of obfuscates some of the other questions I have, but and I just have to commend you and your staff and everybody else for putting this together, because it really answered a lot of questions. But can I just briefly kind of comb through?
Yeah.
Just take 2 seconds, and then if the committee do you want to formulate some, this will take 2 seconds. Okay, thank you. Okay, so in the September 3rd letter, which you have in front of
Yes.
you? Okay. So let's just, question 1, has a proposed site been formally reviewed by NHESP, which is Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program?
It is our belief that this property is not within the jurisdiction of that program. Nevertheless, our consultants have made a formal application to that organization, and we hope to have an answer within 30 days.
Thank you. All right. He had a second question.
I can cut through that if you'd like.
Go ahead.
Comment 2 relates to the fact that our original plan showed an 8-foot-high fence with barbed wire, which is pretty standard for what we do. However, there are provisions in the bylaw, in the ordinance, that limit fence heights to 6 feet in this situation, and in the front yard, 4 feet. So what we've done is we've amended our plans to keep any fencing we're putting in at 6 feet, and we're actually entering the, if you look at, actually, Tom, do you want to put up the plans? We can put up a big set of the plans for everybody to see it. But in short, if you look at sheet A3, on the plans we delivered tonight, you can see that we're going to access the site through the existing fencing on the property, which is 6 feet high, which is the front yard, if you will. So we've lowered all our fencing down to 6 feet, so we are not applying for a special permit for that.
Okay. I think one of the other ones, question 3.
Oh, and I'm sorry, we got
sure.
rid of the barbed wire, too.
And
Thank you.
okay. Yeah. And I'm just going to skim these because other councilors may want to expand upon one or the other, but I just want to skim them so we can sort of get through
Sure.
it. Number 3, HFD is considering sites in Smiths Ferry, which is the name of that neighborhood, for a local telecom. Would the applicant consider allowing municipal essential services to co-locate on the proposed tower?
We would consider it, but we'd obviously need to know how much equipment, at what height, what frequencies, to make sure there's not interference. There would be a requirement that there be some sort of contracts so we can square away those types of obligations. So we are amenable to the discussion, but obviously the devil's in the details.
Okay, how do those details, so the city makes a proposal to you for your consideration?
That's how it would have to work, yeah.
All right, that was just a wild guess, but I thought I was right. Okay, so, thank you. And any of those terms would be negotiated between you and the city, and they would, okay.
The owner of the tower and the city.
Yeah, we're not going to get into that here. I just want to get the,
Correct.
just the lay of the land.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, real good. Boy, I'm going to skip 4 because that's way above my pay grade.
Well, I can tell you what it
go
is.
ahead.
There was let's see, there was one page of the drawings which showed an unidentified rectangular polygon. All that was the equipment area of a future tenant at the property, so we've filled that in the plans to highlight that.
So that looks like a yes to that one.
Yep.
All right, so, okay, on 5,
What we did is we deviated from the scale of the plan requirements under the ordinance for the sole purpose of making it clearer for you all what we were doing, because if we took it in and used the required scale in light of the size of the lot, it would not be easily legible on any plans we'd produce for you.
thank you. Okay, 6. Is the applicant proposing to install any site or convenience lighting or landscaping in or around the quote-unquote compound?
We are, each carrier will have some lighting within the compound area that will either be motion triggered or on timers that is only used at the times of servicing.
Landscaping?
We have no plans to do any landscaping. It shouldn't be visible from the road.
The coal ash would that technically be, I mean, it's got to be south, right? Is that's south of the plant? Or the coal ash, where the current smokestack is, your proposed monopole would be south of it?
No, it's north.
Let's see.
Joe, can you look at that? Where's
So
the pole
here's
going to be?
north-
Is
yeah,
the pole going to
the,
be north or south of the
existing
smokestack?
Smokestack.
I mean, north of it.
Yep, the existing smokestack is north of where we're proposing.
You're going to be south of the stack.
So
I'm
you're going
sorry.
to be,
Yeah, we're up.
Isn't the round thing
I'm
on there
sorry.
the smokestack?
Oh, this is our compound. Our compound's right here. Yeah, I'm sorry, the existing smokestack is south of our proposed
South,
compound.
okay.
Sir, can you just, on this, where's the smokestack and where are you?
Smokestack's over here, compound's over here.
Thank you. Yep, done.
do
Perfect.
that again for me? I'm sorry, I wasn't,
Smokestack is this thing over here,
yeah.
and the compound's here.
Now,
So you're well north of the existing
yeah,
facility.
how well north? I guess that's my question.
Do you want to show them A2?
So you're 600 feet.
That's the East Hampton line.
Oh, cutting
First
through right there?
stops, Yeah,
Say that again, Joe?
that's the East Hampton line, looks like coming up.
The diagonal there?
Yeah. Yeah, so Hadley. Yeah.
You see, that's Ward 8, we're just across the river, don't worry about it.
Don't, all right, that's enough, Councilor McGivern. We're getting off topic. No, we gotta get a Ward 8 line in every meeting, that's quota. Okay, considering
Only
the,
getting to my friends in South Hadley, Mr. Brown.
we're all friends. We're all friends here. Considering the future of the site is still under discussion, would the applicant consider adding, landscaping around the compound so it's a buffer? But right now, you're saying no, because it's not really,
Yeah,
it's not visible, so.
we realized that certain sites we install that would make good sense. This one, there's really no material visual benefit to it, because the way this compound will be situated on the lot in
So
proximity
you
to
couldn't
public roads.
install like 10 or 20 200-foot trees, like sequoia trees around that? You can't just do that right away, sir?
Not right away.
No? Okay. All right. Does the applicant plan on installing any site signage?
We do from a FCC requirement standpoint and safety standpoint, but they will all be less than 12 square feet, so we will comply with that requirement.
Will the signage be on the chain link? Are we talking about like
There'll be
just plaques on
some-
the chain link, or
Some on the fence.
a sign at the driveway, or?
I'm sorry, let me introduce Tom. Tom, why don't you introduce yourself with the,
Hey, just turn the mic on, Tom. I'm sorry, I should.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Hello, my name's Tom Johnson. I'm the site engineer. I work with Proterra Design Group. But yeah, typically there will be some signage. It'll be on the front of the fence, just some signs with some required verbiage just next to the front gate. But they're typically small. They're nothing.
Let's see, I think we've come just to the eighth question. What form of surety is the applicant prepared to offer to the city council per section 7810? Now, I don't know what section 7810 is. Councilor McGivern, you got that memorized?
that's a removal bond requirement?
Removal bond.
Yeah, so that in the event we can't just, or the owner can't walk away and leave this thing up if it's not being used anymore. There's a bond to actually cover the removal of the structure so that the town can feel comfortable that it goes away when it's no longer being used, and we agree to that. We'll post a removal bond should we get an approval, and we'll even provide you with a letter, which this is pretty standard for us, but a letter which will explain the estimated cost of removing the facility, so that will then match up and sync up with the removal bond we would obtain.
Now, Attorney Dolan, you said earlier you're going to enter into a lease agreement with Mount Tom, or your clients are going to enter into a lease agreement. Do we have any sense as to the length of the lease agreement at this juncture?
I suspect it would be 5 years with 4 or 5 5-year renewal terms. Once we find these facilities, we don't want to leave, and this smokestack, us having to leave that is not desirable to us. We have great coverage, we want to keep that coverage for our customers, and this is a disruption that we're trying to fix right away.
Okay, all right, so committee, I've kind of combed through the aforementioned September 3rd letter from Mr. Burkott, and we've got, Attorney Dolan answered every single question. So what's your pleasure? Councilor Alexander,
I have a few questions, if that's all right.
please.
Thanks. Thanks for coming down. Great presentation. Sprint presentations are always 45 pounds of paper, so thank you. You said because of the reduced height from the smokestack that you're on right now, you're going to lose some coverage. Is that
Yes.
going to actually open up gaps for you, or?
Well, I could call up one of the RF engineers to speak to that. Bill, do you want to?
Boy, I wish I could just spirit up an RF engineer. That's pretty nice.
Just turn the mic on. Go to the mic, just say your name and.
Bill Hastings, representing Sprint, RF engineer.
And so the question is, are you going to have any coverage gaps opening up because of the reduction in height of the
Right. So
location?
it's a combination of reduction in height and a change of location. So they both impact coverage. To the north, we actually get increased coverage, even though we're lowering the rad center because we're getting around some terrain. And that's in a budding town in Holyoke to the west. There's a lot of terrain there, and so by reducing the height, you are affecting some coverage to the west.
And so what does that mean for Sprint customers? People in West Holyoke can't use Sprint anymore? What's happening? What are you doing?
It's really very minimal. It's in an area that's not residential, so there's one street that probably had like in-home coverage, and now it has on-street coverage or in-car coverage. But that's percentage-wise, it's probably 1%, 2% of what the coverage of the site can do. So you're never going to get perfect coverage everywhere, no matter what you do. So that's kind of what Mike is saying. It's one of the we're willing to accept that.
Okay, so it's not perfect, but it's still, good enough by the standards of your customers.
Correct.
Okay. Make sure I don't need you for anything else. No, I think I'm all set. Well, maybe I do need you for this question. The radiation output of this thing at ground level where people actually are is different in any significant way from what's coming off the existing facility?
No, it's the closer the antennas to the ground, yes, the signal goes up, but the antennas are so far still above the ground that it'll be imperceptible. If you were to take a measurement on the ground, you wouldn't notice that change.
So, and well within whatever limits are.
That's correct.
Yeah. What else do I want to ask? Other carriers that you said you've got room for 2 other carriers on the staff. I'm sorry, this is probably a question for you still. I apologize. Stay there. Room for 2 other carriers on the monopole. They would presumably be lower. You guys are taking the prime positions, I assume, because
That's correct.
It's your tower. What kind of coverage are you going to get if you're below 185 feet? Somebody's going to be at 175 and 165, I guess.
So very
Is that getting
similar.
awfully low?
Very similar to what I described before. The coverage degradation is to the west in a small footprint of
Over the
whole
mountain.
site. So other than that, there's really not much terrain that's preventing coverage from 190, 180, 170. So for most of the coverage area, it'll be very similar.
So these are desirable pole positions for other
Yes.
carriers or potentially for the city if we decided to partner with you and put some emergency equipment on there.
Correct.
Just now I am all set with you. Thank you. I'm sorry. I believe you are covered, by the way, by NHESP. That is priority habitat on the state maps for endangered species. So please do continue with what you're doing there. The equipment other than the monopole, but the power equipment and whatever else, are these going to be raised up above the 100 and whatever year floodplain?
Correct.
Because you're in the floodplain there, right? I'm not
Yes.
crazy. Yeah. So this is going to be. Are you building a raised dirt pad and then putting a concrete pad on top of that? What's the?
Our plan is to build raised steel structures, and then the equipment will sit on top of that, so it'll be a platform.
So it's an elevated platform, so you're not actually taking up floodplain capacity.
Correct.
Okay.
We will take up some floodplain capacity because we'll have a small concrete piers and steel posts. We'll compensate for that volume that we take up by removing some of an adjacent earthen berm and taking that off the site.
And taking it offsite.
So
So you
we-
do the whole compensatory storage thing you've guys got.
Yeah, and we'll
Okay,
be
good.
going before the Conservation Commission on that too.
Yep. And they'll have words for you, I'm sure.
I'm sure they will.
My last question, I think it is my last question, was on the removal bond. Since you guys are not going to, sorry, your clients are not going to actually be the owners of record, will the bond be in the name of Suez, Mount Tom, whoever?
it will have to be, and that'll be a condition of any approval that we obtain, and if they don't produce that for you, then our special permit isn't valid. So whoever owns the tower at the time it is completed will need to issue that bond in a form satisfactory to the city.
Gotcha. All right, that's everything I had. Thank you very much, and thank you for a great presentation.
Councilor Brown Martinez?
Councilor Alexander sort of asked a question is that I was curious about, is there any environmental hazard or side effect to the people living near it because of the electromagnetic energy through?
Yeah, so what we did is we engaged a company to perform a maximum permissible exposure study for our proposed radio frequency emissions, and at tab 10 of our application are the results of that study. And thankfully and quite frankly, our emissions are a fraction of the FCC allowed limits. I believe in this case it was 2 or 3 or 4% maximum, so we're well below the federal guidelines in that regard.
Yeah, I have another question. So, you've done this in other communities, correct? And what has been their benefit, or if there's any, about what are the I'm going to be blunt, any financial benefits to the communities or the cities that you've placed these in?
Well, we feel we provide a great service to the community in that we provide cell phone coverage for residents and businesses. We also provide an emergency phone service ability in the event of an emergency where power to go down. We can operate off a generator and keep things going. So, emergency personnel, frequently 911 calls are coming in through our system. So we feel like we provide a great community benefit by allowing this wireless coverage. Obviously, for internet coverage, it's very important for educational purposes, for students and schools. So the whole panoply of different benefits we think we provide through not only the voice communications, but data as well.
Thank you.
Councilor McGivern?
Thank you. Mike, obviously it's a very important location for your client. And more important probably to us, it's a very important that the customers of your client do get the service that they need and want. And I think we all know that we live too much by these things, and it is what it is. The difference, and the environmental, if you're within FCC regulations, has nothing to do with the permit. I think most of us understand that we can't regulate that if the FCC does, and the environmental concerns and radiation concerns are going to be well within the limits regardless of what we think. The unique part of this proposal is because this property is undergoing a transformation, that we have lost close to $54 million in taxable value since it's been decommissioned. We're taxing the property, but we no longer, it was actually our second highest taxpayer within the city. We're concerned about what's going to happen to this property. We're concerned what's going to happen to the environmental issues of what and what can be done with the hazardous material that's in the ground, perhaps in the river. We're not sure, but that's going to have to be worked out. So this is just a small cog in a big picture. Your client's going to lease the property for 5 years. One of the financial benefits we do receive from these towers is they are taxable. During that lease period, at what point will taxes apply to Suez is now paying a property tax, so I don't think that'll change just because they're leasing a small portion to you. But what will be the phase-in of being able to tax the new tower as it's being built? And who will pay it during the lease period?
whoever has the legal obligation to pay any taxes on it will, and to the, once the facility is fully constructed, whoever has full ownership of it then will have that obligation. I'm not sure during construction, I'm not familiar with what the tax obligation.
There's a threshold depending on,
While work is in progress,
Yeah.
then we would have that obligation.
okay, until it's turned over. And are you looking for language with Mount Tom in terms of they sell the property or look to develop the property different? Are you looking for language to protect your tower?
Well, we will have a lease that we feel will give us the rights to remain at that location during the duration of the lease. And, we've wanted to negotiate that in so that when I said a 5-year lease, I believe it's with 5-year renewals at our election, not at the landlord's election. So we likely would want to stay there longer.
Which is understandable.
Yeah.
Okay. But from our point of view, we don't want to, if it becomes an item that prevents future development, we have to protect that too. The language with the removable bond, has that been worked out with the city?
It has not. We're glad to work through it with whoever at the city would be tasked with that, whether it's the building department. But we can produce, as I said before, the removal estimate letter as well as the form of surety bond. We could produce that as a condition of any approval.
Okay. I think it would be with our law department, but we can find out. Timetable, what are you looking for?
As far as when we'd want to start construction?
Yeah, when do they want you off the smokestack?
ASAP.
They do.
A while ago.
That scares us. They're not exactly very open with the city about everything that's going on. And, we have to deal with that, and we understand. To the engineers, now this tower is in the footprint of Mount Nanatuck. So it's everything going east, a little bit south and north, and nothing happens to the west except the highway.
There's some residents to the west.
Never thought of that. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Alexander.
Just very quickly, what's your construction timeline for, regardless of when you get an approval and when you start? How long does it take you to be up and running?
Realistically, would you think between 90 and 120 days or longer?
120 max? Yeah. Once you have permits in hand.
Well,
Cool.
once the tower's been delivered, it would probably take 90 days.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and just so I know, when do you go before conservation? Is it
That
concurrent?
application is yet to be filed, but it's in the works.
Okay, so does that depend on us?
They don't depend on us to issue their.
So it could run concurrently, parallel?
Yes,
Yeah,
we
okay.
just can't build without everything first, so we're running.
Oh, we're gonna stay on top of it and make sure you don't build until we get it all straightened out there, sir. Okay, so I personally, just one vote, I think we need a little more information. Specifically, we need a little more communication from our Joe's favorite friends out there, Suez, Mount Tom, whatever they're called now, LLC. Now, Joe speaks with a tremendous amount of insight and historical perspective. And while we try to make light of it, don't make light of the fact that we're all very frustrated, because we are, every one of us. So with Suez, et cetera, it's just it's like talk to a black hole. So there's just nothing there's nothing coming back. So, but I would ask the committee, how would you suggest, how would you like us to proceed?
Speaking just for myself, I'm ready to approve this. The application in front of us isn't contingent on removal of the smokestack. It's got nothing to do with the smokestack. They're being evicted. They have the legal right to evict you from the smokestack
Yes.
under whatever current contract you have. So you're being booted from your perch. You need a new perch. You're obligated to the city has to essentially provide you a perch.
Yes.
So I would say this is utterly independent of Suez and all of the three-ring circus that is trying to get information out of Suez and what might happen to that smokestack. I'm confident that the reason they want you off it is so they can knock it down, but whether they want you off it because they want to paint it purple tomorrow is sort of irrelevant to us and to your permit. So I don't see that there's any further information that we need in order to take action on this permit. And I'd love to have a hearing about what's going to happen with the smokestack, but it's a totally separate issue. That's my opinion.
And Joe, I know you want to break it, but don't let me forget to see if anyone from the public wants to.
Yeah.
Okay, so don't let me forget that. Thank you. Councilman McGivern?
Along the same lines, I think what we have to be careful of, I think, is the language with the removal bond, making sure there's some assurances within the special permit that we are allowed to attach in terms of the location and future development and the transfer of property, leased but back to the current owner, and then to a future owner, and that they all make sense in terms of what your leases are with the current owner. I agree with Council Alexander with one exception. I think the reason they want it off the tower is because they're going to stop maintaining the tower. And by that means, because there's a lease there, they have an obligation to maintain that tower for the existing use, which is no longer their use. They just don't want to be responsible for that. So they're just looking into the future real quick, and I think they not that the tower will deteriorate quickly, the smokestack, but they're not going to maintain it. But I think in terms of the due diligence of this special permit, the applicant has met their due diligence with the two exceptions of making sure we have the correct language on the removal bond and addressing any transfer of property issues in the future.
Thank you. And then I would just also point out there was conversation earlier about question 3 on the September 3rd letter as to what kind of municipal services could be attached there too, and we certainly wouldn't have that if we recommend granting the special permit tonight. So that's my other comment there. But since I reminded myself, since we are in a public hearing, if there's anyone from the public who wants to speak for or against, okay, hearing none. Yeah, we can.
So I'll make a motion just so it can either pass or fail, but I'll make a motion that we approve the special permit contingent on a satisfactory removal bond being negotiated with the city law department. And what was the other issue you were concerned about, Jeff?
The other issue is the transfer of land, future, both the lease of the telecommunications companies, but more important, the transfer. If Suez were to sell the land, to sell the property for development, we need protections that will allow that development to proceed. I think it's limited because I agree most of it's on the floodplain, most of it's in areas where there are going to be issues of removing the coal ash and removing other hazardous material that has accumulated over the years, but it is something we have to be leery of, even if it's not in the near future. It makes sense that we add these conditions, but refer to the law department for appropriate language? That's kind of
are you asking? Water. What are you asking? Who are you at?
Well, if we go forward this evening, if the votes are there to go forward, that the language that we refer our vote to the law department to be put into legal form accordingly. I'm sure Mike would be in contact with them, but accordingly to what we're asking for.
Well, I mean, you're asking me to render a legal opinion, and or opinion on a legal matter that I'm not prepared to do. And I would suggest that we would need legal counsel here from the city. Well, hold on a second, Joe, to answer the question. I would also say this, that if we're going to move forward, then we're closing the public hearing. So let's think about that for 2 seconds, if we may. If we close the public hearing, I mean, I don't see we get anything about Suez. I don't see we get anything about municipal services. Now, I understand there's a time crunch, but let's think about that as well. Is Mount Tom going to say, get off now and take everything straight down? And whose fault would that be, as far as the FCC is concerned? Would that be the municipalities, or is that Mount Tom LLC? And so who's got the burden right now? So I'm suggesting well, you can't render a legal opinion, Gordon, is on that. So I mean, I'm giving, yeah, it's a question mark, and you know, I'm not versed in that kind of jazz. So I don't know how to answer it, but who's got the burden? If we, I mean, if we continue this, we're doing our due diligence. If you close the public hearing, that's it. That slams the door. So just a thought. So, but I'll take your motion, because right now I had a partial motion with a partial. I mean, I have half a motion. I have a motion to approve a special permit.
Could I just make one comment to the councilman's comment about the future transfers of the property? I just want to be clear, though, that the removal bond would relate to when we are no longer, the carriers are no longer using the property. But if Suez transfers that property, our lease rights go with the property, as would the special permit. So we're not agreeing to remove the facility if they happen to sell the property.
I'm sorry, I wasn't clear, Mike. I understand.
Okay.
Normal circumstances, that's not even a question. We don't know what the future development is. It's a big question mark.
Yep.
And if the future, and I explained the numbers to what this property
Yeah.
means to the city. So I'm just asking, and I might be asking for something we're not allowed to ask for, but I'm just looking for some assurances to the city that that property can be developed, you know, as time moves on, to whatever is available and makes sense to both the owners and to the city itself.
Yeah, I'm not sure what my clients could agree to in that regard. We won't look to do anything to impede the development, but we can't say now that if, you know, something happens 15 years from now and someone wants us to leave because there's another development use there on the other 88 acres, that, you know, someone might say, well, you have to come down now. That wouldn't be what we would, that wouldn't be fair to us, I don't think.
Is your lease up right now with, you have a lease with them right now to use the
We
smoke
do, and we've been told that I would think we could characterize it as maybe we're a month-to-month tenant right now.
Month-to-month tenant, okay.
But we weren't before they told us it was time to get down.
Gotcha. And so we haven't even applied to the Conservation Commission yet?
No, when do we think?
Yeah, ready. We need to, I'm actually working with Ryan Allen now. Tom's been put a lot of work into those drawings to be able to submit to CONSCOM with those drawings also. The abutters list is going to be available to us tomorrow. I would say at least 2 weeks before we can file.
Okay, so let me just, for the public, because it was on the microphone. Let me just hold that thought, Gordon, because I can barely walk and chew gum. So let's just deal with what she said so I can get it out to the public. So she's working with our
Andrew.
Okay, with right, you, the who do you represent again? Are you with the? Okay. So the applicant is working with our administrative assistant and our conservation commissioner to put together the proper documentation, and they anticipate being able to do that and getting within 2 weeks. Did I summarize that okay? Okay, all right, so, okay, so that's another layer as to why we may or may not feel like we have to vote on this tonight. So that's my thinking. So, I'll take a motion.
I'll withdraw my original motion. I would suggest, though, if we're going to continue this to presumably the 28th, which would be the next meeting.
Well, let's, go ahead.
Then we should provide a specific and comprehensive list of what we're looking for so that we don't get to the 28th and go, well, we still don't have information. I don't know what you're looking for. So I'm asking that
He took notes, so
we have a clear list.
I know what I'm looking for. He's taking notes. So, but go.
So that was a motion. Continue
No,
to the 28th.
but
I've taken notes, but I would welcome someone reiterating that list.
happily. There's and Councilor Alexander knows my favorite phrase here is business friendly, so he knows that. Councilor, just hold that thought. Well, I'll recognize you in a second. Councilor McGivern.
I'm in agreement. You know, with all due respect, I think we have to get what we need from the law department and from the, perhaps the planning department. And with all due respect, there's nothing to do with Mr. Chairman, but I've stated for 2 months.
The respect to who, me?
Yeah, with all due respect to you.
Okay.
I've stated for 2 months since we assumed these duties that we need an attorney here when we're doing these public hearings. We needed an attorney this entire evening. We had a couple engineers in the audience that could have helped out, you know, with the previous petitioners, but we didn't know they were here.
I'm sure they do enough pro bono work as it is. They don't need to add Holyoke to the burden.
So I would agree for a short continuance to get all the ducks in order and get the right language.
Motion to continue the 28th at 6:30.
Second.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is to continue this public hearing to 28 September at 6:30.
Is that good for you folks?
It's my wife's birthday. It's great.
I'm not going to touch that.
No, I'm fine. I'm fine.
I'm not touching that either.
I'm fine.
I'm not touching that either. So,
I think she's going to make out in the deal.
so, under Attorney Dolan's request for reiteration, I'm just going to go back to my notes. So we spoke about the bond, okay?
Yes.
So we've got that covered. I'd be very interested to hear from the property owner as to their plans with a 372-foot smokestack, because I'm of the opinion that in your very diligent response, that aesthetic issue was raised at least 3 times in here as part of your argument. And I think it makes a big difference as to whether there's a smokestack and a monopole or just a monopole. I think that makes a big difference, but that's me. So there's that. I think we also spoke about the various parts of the September 3rd letter that we don't have to go over, but in particular, I would ask Attorney Dolan to get in touch with Attorney Cunha at the law department. I should have, do you have the number handy, Attorney Dolan? Because I can give it to you.
Yeah, that'd be great if you had it. And that's CUNA?
Yeah, Cunha, but it's pronounced Cunha, C-U-N-H-A.
In Rhode Island, we refer to it as CUNA.
You know what, I could spend all night making comments about Rhode Island, but we're not gonna go there. So let me, but we respect Rhode Island, we love Rhode Island. Matter of fact, you'll be interested to know this, FYI, that the Big E, the Eastern States Exposition, which starts, as you know, this Friday, New England's largest state fair, various days are celebrated. So there's a Massachusetts Day, a Vermont Day, a New Hampshire Day, and there's various days for all the abutting communities. And so the Big E is located in West Springfield, which abuts Holyoke. Well, for years, in other words, for 90 years, Holyoke never had a day until some of us, namely me, got elected, and now we have a day. And where I'm going this, the Big E gave us a day, salute to Holyoke, and we share it with
Rhode
Guess what?
Island.
Bingo. See, yeah, that's why
See?
you get paid what you get paid.
Our
Yes, sir.
sister city.
413-322-5580. She's the acting city solicitor. We do not have a city solicitor, but is that her title, Joe?
She's a very good actor, though, so.
She's acting solicitor.
That's who we met with.
322-5580.
We met with her, actually.
That's the number.
Okay,
So,
great. Thank
okay.
you.
So there was that.
And you wanted me to speak with her about,
Well, as you recall in paragraph 3, you indicate, so the city would have to make a proposal
the
to
municipal
you.
equipment? The municipal equipment?
Yes,
Is that-
sir.
Okay.
So say to her, well, DGR is meeting the 28th September for continuation. Can we have the city's proposal submitted to that to you and to that committee in time for us to vote on a special permit?
Dave,
Okay.
are you looking for an agreement on
No,
that issue
no,
before we vote
no.
on a special permit?
No, I'm trying to, this is listed out in Mr. Burkott's letter. He threw out some 8 with a couple subparts, suggestions. One of the suggestions is, what about a municipal benefit?
I understand that. I'm just trying to clarify if the point of, and I'm not suggesting we're holding up, but the point of holding up the vote on the permit is to have some leverage over that municipal use of the tower.
I don't want to say holding up a vote
No,
on
I
the
don't want to say
permit.
that
Well,
either,
you
but
said it, so
I'm
I'm
trying
just-
to encourage a positive response. Then just getting the proposal and then voting on the permit doesn't get us there. So are you suggesting you'd like a letter of intent from Sprint saying they would be amenable, or some positive intimation from the applicant?
At a minimum, how about a letter from the client saying that we would be pleased to negotiate in good faith with the city of Holyoke relative to a municipal, okay?
Yep.
I mean, at a minimum, but but maybe we can add a little something to that
Signed agreement would be even better.
at no cost to the city taxpayers, but I didn't say that. So those were, I think the other ones, I think those were it.
Okay.
Okay, so on the motion?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? No. Motions continues for love to 28 September, 6:30. And that's where we are. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Another motion will be in order.
Adjourn. Thank you very much.
Favor, aye, we are adjourned. Thank you.